This week on the Orange Box Podcast, we talk about the big Steam hardware reveals, brand new PlayStation IP games not coming to PlayStation, Half-Life 3 reportedly being revealed soon, and more. All of this tonight, but first, on to the new Beautiful Bean intro. Welcome to the place where PC and console gaming talk combine. This is the Orange Box Podcast, episode 11. I am your host, the man who is running a PC running SteamOS, but is considered a console because he is simple and cheap. Nathan, also known as the Frozen Gamer 87. And joining me, as always, the man who decided to buy Metroid Prime 4 because of the millennial NPC quips, Justin, better known as I'm Zaracon. How you doing today? How's your week been?
Well, after hearing about what happened there, my day was ruined. And my disappointment was immeasurable.
Yeah.
But it's been, obviously because of the big bomb shell that was dropped, it's been very interesting. But outside of that, it's not bad. I've recently started cooking again. I haven't made this in a while, and I decided to try this again. Was making some homemade McGriddles. Those turned out pretty well, and so
Nice.
I enjoy doing that. Today I heard that, or rather I heard back from someone about, I mentioned last week about starting up sort of like a new role at my job, and I heard I have like the day set, so December 1st is when I actually start doing that, so within the next 2 weeks, so I'm getting ready for that soon. Nice. So that'll be good. I'm a bit is a bit of an understatement. I'm disappointed in Amazon because they recently canceled an order I had for a Mega Man Battle Network model figure, and this is the fourth time I've ever had a model kit be canceled that I pre-ordered. And like the other times were for a Yu-Gi-Oh! Millennium Puzzle replica, a couple Gundam ones, and then a couple other Mega Man ones. And so I'm not certain why this has been happening, because I've been usually pre-ordering as soon as the pre-orders were live, and 4 out of 5 of them have been canceled completely. So I really feel like even though the pricing was a little cheaper, I would probably still be better off pre-ordering from somewhere else, just because at least I know I would most likely be able to get the model kits and whatnot. But yeah, I think I've been burned enough times that I'm just like I'm tapping out now. I'm not doing this anymore. And then lastly, because of one of the pieces of hardware that was released out of pure curiosity in what its predecessor did, and sort of because I might be intrigued in seeing like how things improve from the original one, I went on eBay and was looking around for a Valve Index, and I was in a couple bidding wars. One person, Clever Fox, outbid me at the last second, but another one I saw, I was able to acquire, so that's going to be coming in the mail sometime. So I'm not going to do too much with it, but I'm going to just sort of do some testing on it, just to see what's like, and then possibly test stuff down the road with any future models that could be happening. But we'll go into more of that later on. But yeah, that's essentially my week in a nutshell.
All right. Well, first of all, I got to ask about the McGriddle thing. I've done that before myself. So I'm guessing that you like boil out some maple syrup and then basically get it into more or less balls that you can add to the batter. Is that what you're doing, or something different?
Yeah, essentially that. I mean, in the past before, it's been a bit. If I was really rushing for time and didn't have time to make pancakes, I would just go and just have some already made and just sort of like pour some syrup and try to like make some slits inside and then just pour it in there.
Gotcha.
But yeah, I've been trying to just like boil the syrup, and then I've heard after boiling it, you should freeze it, and then it would be better. So that way,
You just have to let it cool, really.
Oh, okay. So you don't have to worry about freezing or anything like that.
No.
Okay then.
Especially because it's easier to work with when it's still a little bit warm. Even though then it's still kind of borderline. Like when I've done it in the past, I may have boiled mine a little bit too long, and when it cooled, I mean, like, it started out to where it was more pliable, but then it ended up being cooling to the point where it basically just turned into, like, shards of maple syrup. I mean, they still worked great for making the McGriddles, but, yeah.
We make a note of that.
So the Valve Index, I'm very curious to hear what you have to say about that, because, like, that was the one that I looked at, and I had thought if I was going to get a VR headset, that would probably be the one. And it's only recently that I found out that it basically has a bunch of camera mounts that have to go with it in order to make it function, which I'm glad I never bought it because of that. That seems a little too much. Especially considering what the upcoming VR headset is going to do that we'll talk about a bit later. I'm trying to remember. I know there was something else you mentioned. It'll probably come to me later. Anyway, as far as my week goes, it's been pretty standard for the most part. Saturday was a really, really busy day, basically because I spent the majority of the day cooking. And so it was just like between getting stuff prepped for the family that we had over for dinner on Saturday and then just prepping stuff for Thanksgiving. Like, I'd gone to Sam's Club and picked up like some big bags of bell peppers, both green and the red, yellow, and orange ones, and a big thing of mushrooms and a couple of bags of green beans, fresh green beans, and stuff like that. And so took the time to work with all those. And then I also got a rotisserie chicken so that I could get that prepped for making chicken tortilla soup for church on Sunday, because we had our 3-year anniversary potluck. So I made up some chicken tortilla soup for that, but it was just lots of prep work throughout the day, and I just did a whole lot of stuff. I spent the majority of the day in the kitchen. But yeah, so it was very busy, and then Sunday I pretty much just was a vegetable as much as possible. I mean, apart from, going to church and all that, but, excuse me. The reason I'm yawning so much is because, I woke up at 3 o'clock this morning. I think I just, got up to go to the bathroom, and then I couldn't fall back asleep, and so it got to like 4 o'clock, and I just decided to get up, because today was the last day we had our men's Bible study, which I didn't even end up going to, but it was just kind of like I was feeling antsy about some stuff, and I decided I'd get up and try to get some stuff done early, and I wanted to have an energy drink, but in order to just to help me wake up some more. But in order to do that, I also wanted to make sure that I had something to eat to go with it. So I thought, there's a couple of gas stations around here that do good, like, breakfast burritos and stuff, and they're open 24 hours. And so I drive out to one that's a bit closer. I find out the kitchen doesn't even open until 5 o'clock, and it's 4:30 at the time that I got there. Oh. So I decided to go to the other one that's probably like an additional 5 miles away. Thinking, okay, by the time I get there, the kitchen should be going, and then I should be able to get something. And I get there, and they're working on putting stuff together, but they're just getting started on the sandwiches, and then they'll do the burritos after that. And it's like, I didn't really want to wait around, so I just bought a couple energy drinks so that it would be a completely wasted trip. Drove back home and made my own breakfast, and then did the reading I needed to do. The last couple chapters for the book we've been going over for the men's Bible study, and then Bible reading and whatnot. But yeah, so I was originally going to take a nap during lunch, but I ended up I First, I had something come up at work, like right before I was about to go to lunch, that kind of stressed me out a little bit, and I was able to resolve it without too much difficulty, thankfully, but it was enough to where I started my lunch break late, and then I laid down and tried to sleep for a little bit. Was not really having any success, and the kids were being kind of noisy anyway, so I ended up just not sleeping. So I'm pretty tired. I grabbed myself a half cup of coffee, half caffeinated, half decaf, and just to help me get through, even though I'm sure the discussion will certainly help with that. But I'm trying to remember if there's been anything else. I'm sure there was something else. I honestly don't even remember, though. I guess one thing is my son's replacement 2DS got here, and of course it was just a regular one. He got the transparent blue one instead as his replacement, so pretty cool. Got that set up without too much difficulty. So a little more complicated than it had been previously, but I think they just came up with some other methods that were a little more efficient, which to me just felt more complicated because it wasn't the same thing I had done the past 3 or 4 times I had modded 2DS. So got that all set up for him. Annoying thing with that, though, is that with Mario Maker for 3DS, apparently Nintendo made it so that the save file is not only tied to the cartridge, but it's also tied to the system. And so the save data that he had on his 2DS was tied to that 2DS, and he inserted the cartridge, and it basically said, you can't use the save data that's on this. If you want to play, you have to erase the data. I mean, he didn't mind, but it irritated me, and it's just like, more reasons why I dislike Nintendo lately. But yeah. I can't remember if there was... I don't think there was anything else, like, really worth noting. But working at the office tomorrow and Thursday, and of course, thankfully next week is a short week with Thanksgiving and everything, so... But we obviously have some exciting stuff to talk about this evening, which I'm sure will probably get me a little more hyped up, and of course talking about games and stuff will be fun as well. So, yep. And you know, whatever else it was I was gonna mention, from what you said earlier, you know, comment on or ask a question about, I will certainly remember it when I'm listening back to edit tomorrow, and then I'll probably send you a message on Discord and ask you so I don't forget. Anyway, that's everything I got. So, what have you been playing this week?
Well, this week has been sort of a focus, well, partially a focus on trying to catch up on my achievements for games that I haven't completed 100%. So I started doing a little bit, and there's no footage for this. I started doing some Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep. Not really too much has happened, just because I really still am not feeling that game, and I'm not certain why, if it's just that I'm really kind of burned out of the franchise, or it's just that game in particular.
Yeah.
But I just put 5 minutes into it and had to stop. But then I started doing something, or went back to a game that I had played a little previously before, called Choo Choo Survivor, and this is another of those Vampire Survivor clones. This one's pretty much straightforward. You just are a train moving on a track from start to finish, and trying to fend off hordes of zombies using certain weapons, and you can customize and upgrade your train. Additionally, you can find different survivors and stuff, and they can help support you either by having base stats that they have when they join you, or you can assign survivors to certain skills like repairing your train, increasing damage, the fire rates, EXP boosts, stuff like that. So it definitely helps there. I've gotten a good chunk of the achievements down. I think the only ones I have left are just to complete the hard modes for most of the levels and then also complete the hard modes completely, because you can either complete the levels or you can do a full, technically 35-minute run, which is sort of like the true ending of the level, and stuff. So yeah, so I just have that left, and then I can pretty much say that I'm done with the game completely. But most of the time has been spent in this game. I don't think you've heard of this one before. It's just this game called Another Crab's Treasure, and I've been I've been enjoying that. It's definitely, it takes a bit getting used to with some of the controls, but it definitely plays well, and I definitely enjoy it. The humor, as you've mentioned before, is just it's incredible. I've gotten to up to the Enchanted Grove, or I guess I think it's called the Expired Grove or something like that. Yeah. So I've gone that far. So I wasn't certain where I was supposed to go, even though I had a map, but like early on in the game and trying to figure out where I'm going and stuff. And at first I wasn't entirely certain where you said that one sort of boss was. I thought the whole open expanse that you're at when you're just like in the first area, I was thinking to myself, okay, is this like the area where he's gonna get me or something like that? And then I was like, okay, no, I think I'm actually good. So did some of that, and I actually have to thank you for watching you play through the game during your live stream and stuff, because I think it was the I can't remember the full name, but the Executioner boss. That guy, I was very wary of him during that fight with him. Now it took me a couple attempts in the first one. It's just because he did grab me and he stuck me as a little guillotine. But you know, I was a bit wiser the second time around trying to avoid it. Getting through some of the other fights though definitely was. It's taking me a while to really master dodging and also parrying as well, because I feel like sometimes I'm not dodging properly, so I get hit, or if I feel like I'm either dodging too early or too late. Sometimes it's easier than others, but then I think the biggest thing is trying to parry. I've tried parrying a couple times, and I would say probably only about 3% of the time I'm able to actually pull it off properly. So I'm still trying to get that down. So most of the time, just to make sure I don't die outright, I just default to either fully blocking or dodging, because that seems to be the best bet for me. Getting through the initial part, or I guess the reef outskirts, that was just a bit of that was a bit of a challenge for me, just because I really did not like having to do some of the jumping, platforming, and trying to avoid enemies at the same time. So that was something that, I mean, it wasn't too bad, but it was a bit nerve-wracking for me. But I'll say though that the Grove, man, it's like, how do you put a Soul Swamp this early in the game, and then you have the archers from Anor Londo right there as well, trying to snipe you as you move around. So I'm making progress in that area, but I feel like there are a couple areas where I know there are things that or at least I see things that I've been trying to get to, but I'm not certain how to get there yet. Because there are certain things that are like just out of reach, and I'm not certain if I have to either go around a different way and find like some sort of side path. I'm not certain if there is some sort of tool or item I need to get to a new area, but because I know there are a couple places. Like there was one that's sort of like, not like not sort of like a treehouse type of thing, but it's sort of like that. And I was really trying to figure out how to get up there, because I see something glimmering up there, but there's nothing that I can jump up to. There's no sort of thing to get to, so it's been a bit tricky. So I guess maybe there's somewhere I'm supposed to go. And yeah, I mean, overall it's definitely enjoyable, and it's definitely something that I feel like I will just continue to keep playing, because it's just fun. It's just fun. And I am liking it so far. I still definitely have to master the gameplay some more, but you know, I feel like I'm slowly learning and adjusting to it. But yeah, that is everything that I have.
All right. Well, couple notes. So for starters, with the parrying, I actually found I never could really get parrying down. I pretty much just I was more successful at parrying when I wasn't trying than I was when I was actually trying. So I mostly stuck to blocking, but having high resistance on the shell was very helpful for that. And having some of the shells that are like harder and everything also made a big difference. But yeah, and with accessing some of those areas in the expired grove, like you don't get any more tools, but you do eventually get a couple of different abilities, which you basically just get from, like, I think one of them you get from a story boss later in the game, quite a bit later. And then another one you get from an optional boss that is in the expired grove, but I don't know how easily he'd be beatable this early in the game. I mean, I know I didn't fight him until very late in the game, but it wasn't, I mean, he wasn't like hard. In fact, I don't even think it took me, I'm pretty sure I beat him on my first try, but you definitely, I mean, like if you're able to do it, getting the Mantis Punch, which is what you get from him, that's what lets you break those purple shell blocks.
Okay.
And that's the only way that you can access those areas. Then if you ever come across, there's like metal crab things, and they have like red eyes. They're just like statues, basically. They look like statues. They have like battery clamps, or like you would have for for a car battery, for like jumper cables. And those ones you need an ability that you get later in the game that allows you to electrify that, and then sometimes it'll bring down a platform, or it'll move some hooks or things like that. So I wouldn't worry too much about trying to get to all the different areas. If you can't get to it too easily, then I wouldn't worry about it too much. But if you think this is a swamp-like area, you haven't seen anything yet. This area is really not that bad. I mean, the snipers here, like, I guess I kind of did things a little bit out of order, so I came to this one a bit later. The area, there's a different area it is connected to the expired grove. I think it's maybe the Curdled Village. It might be the name of it. That one is where you have the snipers that are really obnoxious to deal with, but you can do that one pretty late in the game. And frankly, that one I would say it's better to follow where the story tells you to go a little bit more, and then you get to go through the back way, and then it's a lot easier to deal with the enemies there, because then even though there is a sniper, he doesn't fire at you as much when you're coming from behind him as when you're coming from the bottom of the hill, because you're coming from the top of the hill if you come in the back way versus coming from the bottom of the hill. So it makes it a lot easier to deal with him. But yeah, either way, good stuff. Glad that you have been playing it. I'm assuming you've just been playing this on your desktop or your laptop, one of the two.
I've been playing it on the desktop. I played it a little bit on the Steam Deck. I've had to adjust it some, just because initially it was like running like I think 35 to 40 frames per second, so I had to do some adjusting to boost the frame rate some. But yeah, I did a little bit of it, played a little bit of it there.
What's your performance like on your desktop?
I haven't checked.
Okay.
At least I don't think I checked completely, but I know it definitely was a whole lot better than the Steam Deck. So I'm guessing maybe it would have been at. I feel like it would have been I feel like it should be at least 90 plus. I feel like definitely. But I haven't checked it to see what frames I was getting.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. All right, well, along those same lines, I did play a little bit of Another Crab's Treasure on the Switch. Now, the footage here I actually have is from my desktop because I still haven't recorded any Switch footage. And I didn't play much. I basically I think I got through the Queen boss. No, I got past the boss right before, what you call it, the moon snail, the boss that you have to fight in order to talk to the moon snail and then get be able to start doing upgrades for your powers and stuff. So, but the footage here is actually it turns out I did have the footage of defeating Pagurus the Ravenous with banana peels. So that's what's playing. But I also wanted to bring this up because even though I didn't play much, my middle son, has been playing the Switch version, and I mean I put it on story difficulty for him because it's his first Souls-like game, and it's funny because like when he was playing, so he gets to the first boss and he's like, "Daddy, you need to come help me. You need to do it for me." And I told him, "No, you need to figure it out on your own." And then like I think the next attempt he got it. And the same thing happened with one or two of the other bosses, and I just told him, "You just need to give it another shot." And 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 then I just hear, "Yes!" That was great. So, I mean, while I would say I do think in general people should play it on the normal difficulty, which is hard. For an 8-year-old, like I'm trying to convince him that I want him to like the genre. And of course, the kids were really interested in Another Crab's Treasure anyway, because of the fact that it's so colorful and everything. But it still is just really cool being able to watch them start to play these games and all of that. So it's pretty fun. Oh, although one thing I do want to note, so they're playing it on the original Switch, and it definitely is much blurrier there more consistently. I mean, like, I think it kind of did a similar thing to what it did on the Switch too, where it starts off a little blurry and then it clears up. But there's definitely more blurry times on there than there is on the Switch 2, so there might be some sort of, I mean, it's certainly hardware limitations there. Although I may be thinking of handheld mode for them. That might have been the case. Anyway, it doesn't really matter. Either way, it's not running as well as it should on the Switch 2, but I'm just glad to watch the kids play in a game like this. So now, as far as the other stuff that I've been playing, the footage here is not new. It's the same as last week, but I did finish up Sludge Life and got all the remaining achievements. This is a game where I don't know if I would say it's like a really good game. I mean, I liked it some, but it's kind of hard to explain because it's like it's not one where I feel like it's noteworthy to the point where I think it's something I would recommend anyone ever buy necessarily, or at least not, spend full price on, but $2 or something, or if you get it for free, that's a different story. I think it's, decent enough, and if it looks like something you would enjoy, then you play it. Like it's I guess it's kind of one of those games where it's just like I didn't hate it. I liked it enough, and I would probably, like, if the sequel is ever like cheap or free, I'll check it out. But I don't feel like this is a game where I liked it so much that I would want to play it again. And it only had 14 achievements for the whole thing. None of them were overly difficult. Like, the most difficult one was just finding all of the different graffiti spots. But yeah, and I guess one thing I should also mention, so I said this one was kind of like Jet Set Radio in the graffiti aspect, and kind of somewhat similar in the visual art style. The one thing I didn't note is that, of course, Jet Set Radio has great music too, and this one doesn't. I mean, there's some interesting music here and there, but it's kind of a trippy game. I guess that's one way I could definitely put it. Yeah, it was an interesting game, and I'm glad I gave it a shot, because it was something that had been in my library for a while that I'd gotten free some time ago, and I'd been curious about it, and I'm glad I gave it a chance, because it's always good to try out different things. So there was that. After finishing that, I decided I played a little more Nier Automata. Unfortunately, I've been having issues with recording things on my desktop. Like, I haven't figured out exactly what it is, but for some reason the AMD software wasn't recording it. I don't know if it's something to do with like Square Enix's copy protection or something, because they're weird about that sometimes, but it wasn't recording properly. So eventually I was able to get some footage recorded through OBS, but like I thought I had recorded footage like 3 different times, and it didn't record properly. And like I just, went through, killed some higher level enemies and stuff a little bit. And I did this like 3-4 times. And at least one or two of those times I didn't realize that I hadn't actually saved my game after, and so I basically just had to go back and redo a couple things. But I mean, it wasn't anything major. It's not like I was fighting any bosses, just some higher level enemies that were around. But I did get some footage recorded, and I need to tweak that aspect a bit more. But really, I didn't play very much. It was mostly just I wanted to record some footage on the desktop. And while I don't think the footage is a great representation, because it's a little on the blurry side since I had to record through OBS, it still definitely looks pretty decent in the recording. It looks way better in person, though. And if I could get the AMD software to record it properly, I probably could get better quality footage too. So I don't know. I have a couple ideas of things that might fix that issue, but I'm not entirely sure. Either way, this is a game that I probably will end up getting more into in the not too distant future. I just haven't fully committed yet. But what I did fully commit to, and I'm actually almost done with it, is Moonscars. So, first thing I want to say, I decided that I wanted to try and just, like, I checked to see how it was doing on Steam Deck, where locked 90 frames per second, no problems. And then I wanted to try transferring over my save to my desktop, and I figured, okay, well, on the Steam Deck, I installed it through Heroic Launcher, so it's the GOG, not the DRM free version per se, but it kind of is. It's just running through, it's more or less installing through GOG Galaxy. And initially it wasn't set up to have the saves automatically synced, and so I thought that if I turned on the save sync, that it would copy over my save from the Steam Deck and it would download it to my PC. Turns out, because I hadn't turned it on beforehand and I had started the game up on PC, it copied my save over from PC where I had no save data. I don't know exactly how much time I had in the game. Galaxy said that I had almost 8 hours of game time. I think Galaxy, the way it's set up is that if you don't close out of the game, it counts it as being in game, because like, for one, it didn't feel like I'd played that much time. But then also it was just the fact that, well, long story short, because of the fact that I had lost my save data, and I was like, I'm not going to just back away. I'll just restart the game. And I got caught up to where I was pretty quickly, like within a couple of hours. So it probably was not that many hours that I originally had. And then on top of that, where I'm at now, which I'm basically like right before the final boss, GOG says I have 73 and a half hours, and I know I do not have anywhere near that much. So, I mean, like, I would be surprised if I have 20 hours. I mean, I could see potentially 20 hours could be how much time I have with it, but even that, I'm just not really sure about. And unfortunately, the game doesn't show like an actual counter in game of how much time I have, so I don't know if it will show it when I complete the game. But yeah, So as far as this game goes, I did end up playing a little bit on my desktop after I got the save sync thing going because I had to restart anyway. I was like, okay, I'll just do that. And then before I went very far, I made sure that the save synced over to the Steam Deck, which it did just fine. And then I had just played from there. On my desktop, I don't have any way to confirm it because it didn't have a frame rate display since it wasn't installed through Steam. It was running through Galaxy. And I don't know if there was a frame rate counter on there, but I didn't turn one on. I would say it's guaranteed it's running at 240 frames per second on my desktop, but I've basically just been playing it on the Steam Deck. So regardless of how much time I have in the game, I have like 74% of the achievements. And like I said, I'm right near the game. I know that it's not possible for me to get all the achievements in one run, at least not without some save scumming. And I was able to use the save scumming for a couple of achievements. Because of the fact that the achievements don't pop up when I'm running it on my Steam Deck, even though they are still actually counting, which is pretty cool. So I didn't know where I was, and I didn't look at what the achievements were until I was like looking up a couple things about, like I came across a key item that I had 2 different NPCs telling me to give it to them. And so I looked into that and a couple other like collectible items and found out that there's a few different things that you can do that change the direction of like how events go and who's alive at the end and a couple other things. But anyway, so the point is that I'm not going to be able to get all the achievements in one run. I don't know if I will do a second run after I finish this, at least not anytime soon. I could see myself eventually going back and doing it, but I'm not entirely sure. Now, as far as the gameplay goes, my thoughts are a little bit different from the original time that I played this, but not drastically so. What I will say is the environments and the visuals of this game do get very samey. I mean, there's a little bit of variety, but not much. Enemies do get tougher as you go, not surprisingly. The Souls-like aspect, I feel like it doesn't really... It kind of does it does both the Metroidvania and the Souls-like aspects well enough, but not like great for either one. Because there's not a whole lot of abilities you get that enable you to like access new areas and stuff. More than anything, it's just getting there's like I think 2-3 abilities total that you get that actually impact your ability to access areas. Mostly it's just, okay, once you get past this boss or this room of enemies, then you can get to the next area and hit the switch for a shortcut. But the overall gameplay, like I do like it. There's definitely times where it's a bit more frustrating. Something that I do like about this, though, quite a bit, is the healing mechanic is a lot different, because instead of it being one where you have a limited number of healing items, it's that you have like a I can't remember what it's called. E-core is like the equivalent of magic power, I guess you could say, and you can use it both for healing and for using your special abilities. And so when you use it, but it charges as you attack enemies. So basically, if you're attacking enemies, it'll build up your thing, and you can use that at any time to heal yourself as needed. That doesn't necessarily always make it easy, but it can be helpful. And like you'll get different items that are basically the equivalent of rings that give you different like bonuses and perks. Some of them are ones that only last until you die, similar to like Dark Souls, where like for example, the one that I've been using most lately, that is one that breaks when you die, is one where you're invincible while healing, which helps a lot. because that way, taking a bunch of damage, I start healing and they can't do any damage to me while I'm healing. But there's other ones, that basically prevent you from losing your bone dust, which is the equivalent of souls. There's no leveling up in this game. It's basically just a skill tree that you use your bone dust to unlock new skills. I find a lot of the skills in the game are stuff that just don't really fit my play style, but I've just been working on unlocking all of them anyway. You only have one weapon type, which is just a sword. But then you get, there's like 5 or 6 different special weapons, each of which functions a bit differently and has like different things they do. Like there's one that's it's a javelin that you like spin it around and toss it, and it acts kind of like a boomerang, and I can't remember what effect it has on enemies. I think it just does something to weaken them. I can't remember what all the different things are. I mostly just go based on the ones that are most useful in terms of how they handle, more than what they do in terms of function, because they can be a bit helpful on the function. Like there's one that will cause enemies to bleed, but not like to where it'll suddenly drop a big chunk of their health bar like in Dark Souls. And there's others that there's one that like makes it so that while they're afflicted with the status associated with that special, they will do damage to themselves every time they attack. Various things like that. In general, the bosses have not been overly difficult. I think on average, most of the bosses I've gotten through 2 times at the most. But then there's like, I think there's been 2 or 3 bosses that, definitely 2, maybe 3, where it's taken me multiple attempts. And those 2 of those were both 2-phase bosses, and so they just were a lot more tricksy. And so I eventually got through them, of course. Right now I'm at the point where, yes, I could go face the final boss, but I'm trying to make sure that I do all the collectible things that I want to do before I finish that. And I'm not sure how many more I have. I think I might actually be down to the point where there's not really much of anything left. Oh yes, that's right. The main thing I was doing was actually just trying to grind so that I could fill out the rest of the skill tree. Which theoretically shouldn't take that long, but it just depends on how frequently I die, because I die way more against the mobs of enemies than I have against the bosses. So, but yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Oh, and I'll just note that the footage that's playing is from pretty early in the game. So, yeah.
Okay. So Moonscars, that's definitely a game that I remember playing this demo, I think, way back when
That's right.
it was released and stuff. But yeah, so definitely good to hear back on that again, because I've been eyeing it here and there, but I haven't played it yet, or at least the full version. So I was curious about how the full version was. It sounds like it's pretty good. I mean, I thought there was going to be a little more variety in the gameplay, but I guess it doesn't appear to be that way. You don't really have much to customize. So regarding the skill tree, so you said that it sort of takes the place of the leveling system. So are there just like certain abilities and, I guess?
Yeah, essentially it's different types of abilities that you get 2 ability slots, and you can use 2 abilities. Like there's one that I'll use most frequently will be like she'll shoot up like a column of smoke or stone or something that will go up and kind of spread around a little bit, hits enemies, because there's some enemies that you have to break their shield before you can actually do any damage to them. Or there's like one that's intended for flying enemies, because they're harder to reach, and so you can shoot off a shot on that, and as you level it up, it ricochets off of more enemies, and it can break shields. as well. Really, you just have to use one of the magic type abilities for breaking shields, but then there's like one where you can create a clone of your character to help you fight for a little bit, or you can reanimate the corpses of your enemies in order to fight on your side, or just be a decoy. Stuff to give yourself temporary poison attacks, things like that.
And I guess part of curiosity, just because I know there's a game similar to this that came out a while, and so I'm wondering if this also has it. Does the skill tree also provide a type of, I guess, stat increases, if anything like that, or is it just purely ability based?
It's just ability based, but you do get there are items in every area. Every major area has at least one of each of the items that increase your E-core, which is your magic power, and your health. And then there's also one for attack power. So.
I know you said you're near the end, or near the end, or essentially at the end of the game. Are there any sort of optional bosses or special bosses that you know of?
I don't think so. I would say there are probably some that are technically optional, but nothing that's like, oh, this is just an added challenge necessarily. I mean, it's very possible that none of them are optional. I've just been doing every one I've come across, so I couldn't tell you for sure, but I know that I'm pretty sure I've covered the whole map at this point. So it's more that right now it's more than anything just grinding, and unfortunately some of the achievements are just not possible to get because of decisions I made earlier in the game.
Okay. And I guess one last thing, since it is, like a sort of Metroidvania Souls-like type of game, are there any sort of because since it's been a long time since I've played the demo, is there any sort of special backtracking because of abilities or skills you unlock, or is it just more or less?
To a degree, yes. There's, like I said, I think that there's really only one ability that legitimately enables you to access a few new areas. But other than that, I really can't think of anything. Oh yeah, one thing I did forget to mention that I do just want to briefly mention is the parry system. I really like. I don't always get the parrying down, but when you do get it, it's really satisfying because you do a counter immediately, and so that's very helpful in terms of, because you'll do a parry and the enemy will typically get stunned for a little bit. It gives you a chance for some free hits and all that, but yeah.
Interesting. Going back a bit, one thing that I had noted, which I forgot to mention, it actually has to do with another Crab's Treasure. One thing that I actually kind of liked was the checkpoint system, or right when you face a boss.
Yes.
That definitely makes it a whole lot easier, because
Yes.
When I first died, actually, I didn't think about it initially, but I thought, oh, I don't have to backtrack and go back, and I think and it's been definitely very useful a couple times.
Yeah.
And I'm definitely kind of glad that system was added into the game. I definitely appreciate that there. Let me see. I had another question. Let me double check. I feel like there was another question I actually had, but I didn't write that one down, and I can't recall what the question was. So I'll try. If I remember it, I will definitely I'll definitely make a comment on it later on. But yeah.
All right, good stuff. I feel like there was something else I was gonna say. I'm trying to remember. Yeah, I don't know. I guess we'll just go ahead and move on. So, okay. So this week, going into the news, we had the reveal of not one, not two, but three brand new pieces of hardware from Valve put in with the Steam Deck family. So we had, first of all, the brand new Steam controller, which actually, that's right, I have the video here. I'm gonna play that. So the first thing we have shown off with all of this, I should say, the video opens up just talking about the Steam Deck, how well it's doing, how everybody loves it, all this good stuff. And then they go into the Steam controller, which, just as the leaks and mock-ups suggested, it's laid out basically exactly the same as the Steam Deck, with some improvements, including taking the back buttons and making them rounded, so that they're a little more separated. It seems like they're probably going to be a little more on the squishy side, which is probably beneficial. There's a new way to activate the gyro with how you grip the controller, which is pretty nifty. And to be clear, this isn't my commentary on the thing, other than just mentioning some of the features. It comes with a puck attachment, or not attachment, but it's like a USB magnetic puck thing that you can magnetically attach the controller to the puck in order to charge it, and then you can just pull it right off. That puck also can sync up to 4 of these controllers, which is also really cool. Of course, the thing, has, like I said, all the same features as the Steam Deck. Has built-in gyro, has the analog triggers, obviously, all the face buttons, dual touch pads, D-pad, all that usual stuff. They also are using a different type of stick, which is supposed to be basically an evolution of the Hall Effect joysticks, which are magnet-based instead. These ones are. And, so there's really a lot to this. And they also revealed the Steam console, or I'm sorry, not Steam console, the Steam machine, the new Steam machine, which is basically looks like half of, an Xbox Series X cut in half and put on its side. That's supposed to be 6 times more powerful than the existing Steam Deck. They say it's capable of 4K 60 using FSR, and of course it's a living room box primarily, but can also just as easily be used for as an actual desktop. It basically has all the same type of thing as the Steam Deck does, because it's using SteamOS. So it boots into the regular gaming mode, but you can also go to desktop mode and you can use it as a full desktop, install any Linux apps that you would normally install, probably also some Windows ones using Proton layers, all of that stuff. But then the very last thing that they revealed is their brand new VR headset called the Steam Frame. And the Steam Frame, to kind of give just like a quick overview, unlike the Valve Index that they previously did, this one is capable of a bit more. You can use it without having to have any wires attached to it. It can play some games natively, or it can also stream games. It uses cameras on the outside of it in order to track where your hands are when holding the special controllers that are coming with it, that have all the face buttons that you would normally expect on a regular controller, but also have the touch controls and the joysticks and everything like that you would expect with a VR controller. I guess really there's so much that can be said about all of these. But I guess I should note, with the Steam Frame, it has a special low latency USB dongle that is specifically like designed for this. It's to be extremely low latency, and also it has a special type of eye tracking to where when you're looking at when you're in the headset, it always gives the highest pixel density to where you're looking, and then has the rest of it more blurry. But it's to the point where it's supposedly not even noticeable, and it's so well designed to where people have tried to see if they can get it to get out of sync and have not been able to. And I guess the very last thing to note, from my perspective at least, is the fact that both the Steam frame and the Steam machine have the micro USB slot to where if you have any games installed on a micro SD from your Steam Deck or one of the other devices, you can transfer it between the devices and it will just work. The games will work right away. Granted, I would assume that's only if you're signed into the same Steam account or a Steam account on the same family group or whatever. But nevertheless, it does make it a lot simpler from that standpoint. Now, there's a whole lot that I have as far as thoughts go on all of these reveals. That was just scratching the tip of that iceberg. But I'm going to give you first dibs. So, yeah, go for it.
Man, I don't even know where to start, just because there was so much that was shown here, and it's great. I mean, I guess I'll start off with the controllers. I mean, the controllers, I'm so glad that the rumors were true with this, getting an actual Steam controller that is a vast improvement over the original controller, and it's essentially just going to be a Steam Deck, but without the screen, essentially.
Yep.
Which is great, because the Steam Deck, it feels good. Like, it's not like cumbersome to hold, it's not uncomfortable. So I think that's great that they're able to do that and keep all the features in, especially with the dual trackpads. I think that's definitely good. They weren't able to they didn't have to compromise on that, and so I'm glad that they were able to pull that off. And to be honest, I was initially surprised / nervous when I saw that the joysticks had, I can't remember what the full name is, but I think it's like TMR, the magnetic joysticks. I was a little nervous because I was like, okay, it's gonna have Hall effect, I'm glad to see that. But then I looked at it and I saw that, I said, oh no, they're not using Hall effect, that's horrible. But then I looked online and I saw what it was, I said, oh, it's like a better version of Hall effect. Okay, that's why that's good. I like that. So I'm definitely glad about that. The puck is definitely an interesting feature. It's definitely nice, and I'm guessing you could still charge it, because I saw the USB-C port, so you could probably still go ahead and charge it that way if you wanted to. But the fact that the puck also acts as a dongle for 4 controllers is pretty good in itself. So that way, it's easier if you have multiple controllers, people playing. You can just sync up that way. So I think that's definitely pretty good there. I'll definitely have to see. I'm not certain how I feel about the rear buttons, actually. I don't know if it'll be, I don't know. It could be easier. When I was looking at them, I was trying to figure out if the way they were designed would be easier to press or harder, because that could determine how I feel about using them. I mean, I'm not saying that I have too many problems using the rear buttons on the Steam Deck as it is, but I thought they were fine as they were. So I mean, if these are easier, then that's fine. But I guess I'll just have to see on that end. I think was there one button on there that I was just curious about? Okay, no, that wasn't anything there. Yeah, so I mean, I think this is definitely good. Now, I mean, obviously, I think one of the biggest things, and this applies across the board, is what price this is gonna be. After reading through all the things that were mentioned here with the Steam controller, I'm probably gonna say it's gonna be $80. That's possibly maybe $90. But I'm hoping that's like maximum price. Because I would be interested in getting a couple of these just because I'm like, yeah, that's pretty good. And also with the dongle, it's easier just to have multiple controllers just pair up, simple as that. So I'm hoping it's not too pricey on that end, but of course that's just something we'll have to see eventually whenever Valve just gives us more info and more details, because it just because we'll need to know. Now, I mean, all in all, I definitely do like it, and definitely looks great. I'm definitely going to at least get, like I said, I'm gonna definitely get at least one of these controllers. But yeah. Oh, now one thing actually I was curious about, because I don't think it was mentioned. Let me actually quickly check. Or unless you happen to know, did this have any type of 3.5 millimeter jack? Just out of curiosity.
I didn't notice. I'll have to pay closer attention next time it's shown on screen, but I don't. Well, yeah, I really don't know. We'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah. Let me actually pull up the specs. Okay, actually no. I'm looking at the spec sheet now, and it does not have one, which is, I mean, it's a bit odd to me. Since pretty much all controllers nowadays have them. So yeah. I mean, sure, if you're playing this on a PC, you probably wouldn't need it, because you would probably just be plugging into the computer anyway. But considering that this is also being marketed with the Steam machine, I'm not certain why they wouldn't go ahead and add one in there. So that's definitely a bit odd to me that they wouldn't do that. But it's not the end of the world. Definitely could be worse, I guess. But
yeah,
it is what it is. But yeah, I think that's all that I have for the controller right now.
Okay. All right. Well, probably just to keep things simpler so we can keep our thoughts in order, let's stick to talking about one thing at a time. So I'll go ahead and give my thoughts on the controller as well, and then we'll move on into the Steam machine and then the Steam frame. All right, so the controller, of course, this is exactly what I wanted. It's pretty much exactly what I was looking for the whole time, and honestly, it's even better. Like, I'm so impressed with the way this thing looks, and especially because I was a little concerned when we saw that icon last week that just was a little questionable. Okay, were they gonna not have a proper D-pad or a second stick, or what was going to be missing? And nope, it has absolutely everything that it needs to have, and all the stuff I was looking for, all the back buttons. As far as you're concerned about the back buttons, I can definitely understand that, but they seem like they're like big and round, so they'd probably be pretty easy to hit with your middle and ring fingers. Well, that is, unless you use your... Point is that they should be pretty easy to press, and like the buttons on the back of my controller here, it's kind of blurry, but those are pretty small, and for my hands, like, it took some getting used to being able to press those tiny buttons, but those are definitely smaller than the ones that are on the Steam controller. So if I could get used to it on this, I'm not going to have any problems with it on the Steam controller. And I mean, like, it wouldn't be bad if they were bigger, but considering how much smaller the Steam controller is compared to the Steam Deck, it makes sense that they wouldn't be as big. And either way, like, I'm looking at it and I'm so on board, so very on board. My only concern is the price, and basically the way I'm looking at this is that I will definitely buy one. If they are, I think that the highest I would be willing to go to buy more than one would be $80. If it goes above $80, I probably wouldn't buy more than one. However, if I get to a point where, like, I have sticks drifting on some of my older controllers, I may end up just getting rid of those controllers, like sell them for cheap to someone who wants to fix them up, and then just replace them with the Steam controllers, because I mean, to me, those controllers just basically look perfect. Now, I will say, like, the QRD one that I've been using, for a while now, I love this controller, and I mean, it's the only controller I've been using when I play on PC. Granted, I haven't been playing any PlayStation games recently, and probably whenever I do a PlayStation game, I should say, depending on the game, I may still use the PlayStation controller, but, like, this thing has just been fantastic for every game because of those back buttons. And, but the Steam controller also has the gyro and the touchpads and everything. It's just, like, it's going to be a better controller without question. It'll definitely be more expensive, too. At least I would expect it to be. I don't think there's any way that it would be only $60. If it was, I would probably buy 4 of them. But no, I mean, I would probably do 2 or 3, but yeah, I'm so happy with the controller, and I'm really happy that all this hardware, which we didn't mention earlier, is coming out early next year. So it's very much like, this looks great. I'm excited about that, and even if that's the only thing I buy, I will be very happy just being able to have that, because it's super great. And all the previews I've heard have been very positive. Just all across the board, I'm super excited about this controller, and I feel like I'm just going to be repeating myself over and over, so I'm going to stop there. So let's move on into the Steam Machine. Go ahead and give your thoughts.
All right, so this is, I know we've definitely talked about rumors of a Steam Machine, a second iteration, and so while of course we talked about it, I still to a degree am somewhat shocked that this is an actual thing, and I'm slightly in a mixed bag regarding this. I guess the first thing is, I guess I'll get the bad out of the way, is sadly the rumors regarding the specs were pretty much correct regarding what the system specs were like. And that's a bit disappointing because it was in line with what I was sort of saying about being, well, in line, but it actually ended up being a little slightly weaker version, because originally I was saying it was roughly about like an RX 7600, but according to Digital Foundry, they said it was more like a 7600M, which is the mobile equivalent.
Mm-hmm.
So it is a slightly weaker version of that. So, I mean, I guess to put that in perspective, then, like, the GPU that I had before I upgraded to the 9060 XT, which was the 6650 XT, that's roughly a little more powerful than what's in the Steam Machine, essentially. So, it's essentially weaker to that point. And so, I mean, like, I guess to even give you a little more perspective, you would essentially be running Clear Obscure Expedition 33 at 60 FPS, and that's pretty much the best you could do at 1080p. Just because it's not that powerful, and I think one of the biggest things is just the fact that it's bottlenecked by 8 gigs of VRAM, which is just a bit disappointing. And I get that this is sort of like an entry level for people to get into this, but I would have liked it if they put in maybe at least 12 gigs of VRAM. That would have been nice there. From what I've heard, and I could be wrong from if I've heard, which is still nice, is that you can actually upgrade the system RAM, so that's definitely kind of cool. So I like that. So while you are limited with what you can upgrade in here, you still have some options, which is definitely good, and more so of like a PC. So actually it does sort of remind me in the aspect of the original, at least the Alienware version of the Steam Machine, since that one you couldn't upgrade the GPU, but you could upgrade the RAM, you could upgrade the storage, and you could, while albeit limited, you could actually upgrade the CPU as well for that one if you wanted. So this one sort of seems to be following in that in those footsteps to a degree, but you probably wouldn't want to do too much considering the fact that it is such a small form factor. You want to put something there that's like really uses up a lot of power, because there would be so much heat trapped in that little box. Which also was another thing that is kind of cool, is how small this thing is.
Yeah.
It definitely would be great to have, in your living room, just having that small little discrete box that plays your PC games, so you could just like play them right there, or if you wanted to, say stream it from your more powerful computer like in another room. So I think that's definitely cool in that aspect. But some people might even have some way to stream already, so they probably wouldn't really need all that much. But I think that's definitely cool. Now initially I was I was very skeptical and puzzled as to why they said the system storage for external storage was via micro SD, and I thought, why are you doing that? That's so weird. But it made sense once they said, hey, you can transfer these games to your Steam Deck or to your Steam frame. I thought, you know what? That actually makes sense now, and yeah. I think that's actually a good idea. So you can actually take your games wherever, essentially, without having to re-download them, or anything like that. So I think that's definitely a brilliant strategy there. I think the different ports they have are pretty cool. I think that I'm a bit puzzled as to why they only opted to do, I think it was HDMI 2.0 instead of HDMI 2.1, since that's a more modern and I guess more somewhat standardized version of HDMI. So I'm curious as to why they did that. But I mean, it'll work. Like, I don't think there's really any problems there. I mean, especially since you're not going to be doing too much, beyond. I mean, if you're streaming videos online, you could do 4K 60, but you're not going to be taking advantage of it through like gaming anyway. So I don't think there's too much of an issue on that end. One thing that I think is definitely cool is the customizable front plates. I think that's definitely pretty cool. There was the one that they showed in the video, which isn't for sale, but it's just this display, which definitely looks nice. And there are some people, already wanting to make they want Valve to either sell one or just to have someone make a custom version of it. Just having that digital display, because it would be pretty cool, especially if you wanted to just display, especially if you want to display your I guess your performance. So if you want to have some sort of monitor for that would definitely be pretty cool to have on the system itself. But of course, you can also have your own. They're going to be having different custom ones. And there was one that Dbrand had, which was for a oh gosh, what was it? Oh man, let me quickly pull this up, because this was sent to me recently. It was for it was from the companion cube from Portal, and they're making, and Dbrand's making a skin for the
nice
for the Steam machine. So definitely expect that. And one thing which I saw the other day was people of course were calling it the Gabe cube, but which you showed to me. But one thing which definitely was interesting, like, what if this was the orange box?
Yeah.
So I'm like, yes, I would be very intrigued to see that. But yeah, all in all, I mean, I'm disappointed in the specs because they're not that great. And I understand that, if Valve were to really try to make this, if they were trying to make this, truly a cutting edge piece of hardware, it would be quite expensive relative to, your standard living room device. But that being said, while Valve said they wanted to price this closer to an entry-level PC, they need to be really very careful with how they sell this, because considering the fact, like I said, this is essentially a mobile version of a 7600, which came out last, I guess, last GPU generation, and it was on the lower end, I would really say an optimal price for this would be like $500-$600. Like, you're really stretching it if you're going to get closer to like $800-$900. It's just, you're really asking a lot in my opinion. And so I understand that I understand that they're trying to price this as they would a PC, but still, if you're trying to sort of target that console demographic to a degree, then you really should try to be a bit competitive in that price point. In regards, so that's probably one of the other critiques that I have with this, because I mean, they could, like, the specs will be fine, but it could be fine, but you have to make sure the price reflects the specs, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So you can't, they definitely have to be careful here. But I mean, all in all, I don't really have too many major complaints about this. I think it's cool that this is another way for people to try Linux via SteamOS. So I mean, that's definitely good. I wasn't initially certain. Oh, and also, Valve did also mention the fact that they're going to be upgrading their rating system. So before, how they would always say if something is Steam Deck verified or something like that, now they're going to over encompass that with SteamOS, and so also have a Steam machine verified status as well. So you can also see those ratings now in games on the store as well. So that's definitely cool on that end. Man, I think this one, depending on how it's priced, I might get it, just because this would be something that I could have in the living room to play with people, rather than, because initially I was thinking, well, maybe I could make some sort of small form factor PC and put that there, but considering the fact that this would essentially be that, it could work. It could do that job. I mean, the hardware definitely can play games, but just don't expect them to be, like all. I mean, the fact that they said 4K 60 is a bit of a joke there, even with FSR. But it just don't expect to do too much beyond like 1080p if you're running something that's newer, especially if it's running Unreal Engine 5. Like at that point,
right,
you definitely should be expecting 1080p 60 at most. Although depending on the game, you might be able to actually get 90 FPS, because I did actually get that with Power World. So there could be some exceptions here or there, but just overall, don't expect too much out of it. But yeah, I think that is really everything that I have to say on the Steam machine.
All right. Well, a couple things. For starters, in terms of the performance metrics, I mean, I definitely would agree that in general, 4K 60, even with FSR, is not going to be all that doable. At least if it is, it's going to be like maybe ultra performance, which is like typically that's going to look pretty bad. But I will say that it's not necessarily going to be the worst thing. I mean, like you might be able to get decent performance, and like as an example, my laptop has an 8 gig mobile GPU. I mean, it's a 4060 mobile GPU, and it definitely, I mean, like there are some games where it does better than others, of course, but like in a game like Returnal, for example, at 1600p, I'm getting, or maybe 1440. I can't remember if I was able to get it to 1440 or if it just went 1600 by default, because that's the resolution of the screen. But that one I was getting, like 80 frames per second, and it looked great. And I think that was with the settings maxed out and stuff. So it was like, I was impressed with it, and like Doom: The Dark Ages. I mean, it definitely didn't look anywhere near as good as obviously it did on my desktop, with a third of the VRAM, but it still was running pretty well. I was pretty pleased with how it looked and ran overall. Definitely better than it did on the Steam Deck. As far as the device overall, I'm honestly super mixed on it. I definitely agree that 8 gigs of VRAM, it should be more than that. I think the ideal would be 12. 12 gigs of VRAM I think would be a really good balanced number because, yeah, it's not as high as it could be, but it would go higher without making the price too much higher theoretically. And it would make a big difference in terms of performance, but I also understand that if they're trying to make this more of a budget PC, make it theoretically around potentially as low as like 400 for the 512 gig model, and then 500 for the 2 terabyte model, then maybe that could be, I mean, of course, that's just my theory of the prices. It could be 5 and 6, but see, it's such a mixed thing for me because on the one hand, in general, it would be something where I'd be like, no, I don't need this, and I don't even particularly want it. But one thing I thought about is, oh yeah, I'm going to be setting up the garage as a kid's space. Would it be a good idea to maybe have it set up out there? So that way the kids would be able to play some games out there as well? Because I don't really want to put the whole PC out there. Because I want there to be more safeguards, and plus there's also the reality that like the desktop is not really set up to do Wi-Fi, and I don't want to have to run an Ethernet cable out to the garage in order to be able to plug it in. So I would rather have something that can just go based off of Wi-Fi. And like 8 gigs is not going to do a lot for every game, but a lot of the games that my kids would probably be playing in particular, or if I was using it that I would probably be playing, I would just go for games that aren't as demanding. I don't know. It's very mixed for me. Now, I know that this is not something I would use in my, at my desk in my room. There would just be absolutely no point, because it's like at that point, I'll just use my desktop. I mean, or like if I want to sit on the bed with my wife or whatever, I can do the laptop, and it's basically the same specs, more or less. I think my laptop has 32 gigs of RAM, but VRAM is still only 8 gigs, and CPU is probably pretty comparable. The one thing that is good about the Steam Machine is it does have a better CPU, like a pretty decent CPU. And their claim about it being, I think they said 6 times more powerful than the Steam Deck, the Fox actually tested that out, and he said, yeah, that's pretty much accurate. So that's good. And, when I also think about it, okay, the Steam Deck, in general, I've been pretty happy with the performance on most games. Now, the big modern AAA games, like, I wouldn't try to run Monster Hunter Wilds on there or anything, but, it's definitely something where it could do decently on some stuff, and I've been, pretty happy with my laptop overall from that perspective. The thing is, it's going to be a beast for older games. For older games, it'll be more than good enough. And so there's just like so many layers to this. And of course, obviously one of the best things about this is the fact that if you already have an existing Steam library, you don't have to buy a single game. Because you can just play stuff that's already in your library. You don't have to get a new library to play this. And that in and of itself is huge. And of course, it works with not only the Steam controller that's provided, but with basically any controller you want to use. You're not limited to just using, you have to use the Steam controller. No, you could use any controller that you have available. Some of them might be, you need to have like a dongle or whatever, like especially the older controllers, like, an original N64 or NES controller or whatever. You'd have to have some type of USB dongle in order to be able to use it. But considering the fact that you can't use those at all on other consoles, it's a small price to pay if you really want to use that. I'm just so all over the place on this one. For me personally, even though I would want to use it if I had it, because it's just kind of like, it's new and shiny. At the same time, I don't think I would buy it for myself. And I think my kids would probably end up using it a bunch in reality. Especially because, like, something that small, you could very easily switch it between being connected in the living room and being connected in the garage. And since my kids, when they play on the living room PC, they usually play on the monitor anyway. You just be like, okay, one kid's playing on the PC, another kid's playing on the Steam machine, another kid's playing on the Switch or their 2DS. It's like everybody gets something to play, and we have basically 2 PCs to be available. So that definitely makes it tempting from that standpoint. Because while yes, my laptop could technically do that, I don't really want the kids using the laptop. I mean, I got the laptop partially for being able to play games portable that that just don't work well on the Steam Deck. But I got it more than anything so that I would have an easy way to do recording and editing away from home without having to have my tower with me. Now, I will say, if this had come out prior to me getting a laptop, I may have considered this type of thing as a mobile workstation for doing that kind of stuff, because the specs are similar enough between that and my laptop to where it would basically do the kind of stuff I would want it to do. But then I also think about the fact that it's still convenient having the screen already built into the laptop, and that's part of the reason why we got a laptop rather than just getting a form factor PC. But yeah, I think overall this thing has real potential. It's definitely not going to sell anywhere near the numbers that the main consoles are, because it's not going to be sold in regular stores. It's just going to be sold through Steam. I mean, that's the only way you can buy it. So there's anyone who thinks that it's intended to be a competitor from that standpoint is very mistaken. Anyone who thinks that Valve needs to sell this in order to make enough money is mistaken. It's like, if they were concerned about selling more units, they would sell them in stores instead of just on their own store. And, there's a reason why, even though the Steam Deck is nowhere near the numbers of the Switch and probably would never get that high even if it was sold in other stores, but it's always sold out, pretty much. Like, it's always getting sold out on Steam, and I have a feeling the Steam machine could do very well. Now, I will say for console players, I think this could be a really good entry point for them to get into Steam gaming. I mean, personally, I think the Steam Deck is the best way to do it. I mean, unless you just don't like doing handheld gaming. If you only want to play on a TV, I definitely would say the Steam machine is probably the best way to go for getting into PC gaming, because it does have the user-friendly gaming mode that it opens up with, which, like the Steam Deck with SteamOS. But if you do want to try and do any of the back-end stuff, you can dabble in it. You can kind of learn some of that stuff, because as much as console fanboys in particular, mostly, I think most of the ones who spew all the misconceptions have just never gamed on PC, and they're just repeating what they've heard. But despite what the detractors have said, who at least claim to have played on PC, it's not as complicated as it seems. Now, you listen to someone like the Fox, who is extremely technically knowledgeable and does all the little tweaking, and just like, he goes way beyond what I could ever have the patience to do. That's not the norm. The kind of stuff he does, that's just like super hardcore benchmarking, especially because like he just built a Steam machine equivalent himself in order to be able to test out what it was probably going to be able to do, and he had to do a lot of tweaking to get it essentially to where they were, given the hardware he had available. But that's not going to be the experience with a normal person using the Steam machine. It's just not. It's not going to give you the same visuals and performance necessarily that you get on the PS5 or the Series X, but in some cases it's actually going to be better. And just because of the fact that you can adjust settings if you want to. And the settings, despite all the misconceptions, are actually very, very simple and very straightforward. And if you don't know what a setting is, it's easy to look it up. It's not going into config files and changing all sorts of stuff in there. It's like there are some situations where you would have to do that in order to do certain things like turn off motion blur if the game doesn't give you the option by default, or various other things where you might have to do it if you want certain results that the game doesn't give you, but it's not a normal thing. Like I think there's maybe like 5 games where I've ever gone into the config file and changed something, and it's almost always been either removing the frame cap or turning off motion blur, or both. And that's about the extent of it. I mean, it's so quick and easy that it's ridiculous, but like I said, that's something you almost never have to do. So I guess the real question here, before we move on into the next section, is this a PC or is it a console?
Well, I would definitely. Well, here's the thing, and I actually forgot to mention this, and I was going to bring it up right near the end of this segment, is the fact that one of the things that regarding SteamOS is the fact that it's Linux, and people say, oh, well, Linux is just bad, you can't play your games and stuff. Well, 90% of games on Steam actually can be played in SteamOS and in Linux right now.
Yeah.
That's been shown that. So, but additionally, if you don't want SteamOS on your Steam machine for whatever reason, you can actually install Windows on there.
Yep.
Instead. So, you'll lose that sort of console-like UI upon boot up, but you will be able to play your all the other games that have issues. And with that sort of customization, it's almost like it's a PC at the end of the day, with freedom. And you also said you would need to have, if you have a Steam library, you would already have games, but if you have GOG games with the Heroic Launcher, you still have games available.
Yep.
So, regardless, because it's such an open platform PC that is, your Steam machine can be whatever you want it to be, because it is a PC.
Yep. But it has a console UI, so it's obviously a console. Yeah. It's funny because you get these console fanboys, particularly those who hate Xbox, that will say it's a console, but then when Xbox does virtually the same thing, they're just adding the PC elements to the console. It's a PC. It's not a console. It's not an Xbox. Just consistency is not something you have, and as much as I made fun of it in the past, not so much. Well, I guess I shouldn't say I didn't make fun of it so much, but I definitely was skeptical about it. It's very clear the Xbox tax is real. It's just it's sad and pathetic that it is that way. I mean, I used to be such an Xbox hater. Especially when they first revealed the Xbox One, I made fun of it so much. And yeah, it's just wow. But nevertheless, the Steam machine is a PC. It's built like a console. It has a console-like UI because it's SteamOS, which is on the Steam Deck as well. But it's still a PC because you can do whatever you want with it. And you can install Windows. Heck, if it wasn't for the fact that Apple was such a pain in the butt about it, you could install Mac OS if you wanted to. But they basically lock you down, prevent you from doing that. At least prevent you from doing it easily. So yeah. But anyway.
One thing, actually, you mentioned this, and it definitely also made me think maybe I might get this, is because I know that whenever I go to my, or at least when I'm spending an extended time there at my sister and brother-in-law's house, my niece and nephew want me to bring my Steam Deck, so that way either they play the games on their on handheld mode, or I have to bring my dock and hook it up to a TV.
Yeah.
But if I brought the Steam machine, I wouldn't have to worry about the dock and all that stuff, and that would make it easier for me. So I'm thinking to myself, that might actually be worth it on that end.
Yeah.
So I'm definitely now considering it more.
Yeah.
On that end.
That's a good
that
point.
could be a more portable way to have things set up for me. So I kind of like that idea now.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny because thinking about this thing, like initially when we heard the rumors that, that it was coming, and we both pretty much believed, yeah, it's going to happen. I was very like, I don't know that I would ever buy this. But the more I look at it and the more I think about it, especially just understanding the fact that this isn't just a console, that this is a PC, that it still has access to my entire library, and knowing that the specs are similar enough to where it basically would run games about as well as my laptop does, minus the fact that it doesn't have DLSS. But I mean, it has FSR 3, which from what I've heard, it's actually better on things other than the Steam Deck. It's just when you're dealing with the much lower tier hardware that it's really terrible. But also, theoretically, I mean, it could potentially get FSR 4, which is even better image quality. And I mean, there's so much you can do with that, and it just has such an expansiveness from that standpoint. And then, of course, like I said, I think about how my kids could take advantage of it, and especially with as much as they've been getting into PC gaming. And hey, if I could make it so that basically they would be able to have another way to do PC gaming without having to build another PC, and just having something that's a simple set-top box that we can have in the living room when they're in there, and then when we get the garage set up, then we could take it out to the garage, and then the kids could play multiplayer games or what have you. That makes it more appealing. I'm still not completely sure if this is something I want to buy, but I'm definitely leaning a lot more towards it than I was before the reveal. And we have to be completely clear. Like we've said before, PC gaming is not about the power alone. Because yeah, you can have a super powerful rig, but what makes PC gaming great is not the power. What makes PC gaming great is the freedom. And that's why it is that I play more PC games on my Steam Deck than anywhere else. I play them more than I do my desktop in most cases, because the Steam Deck is so convenient, but at the same time has all the freedom of a PC, which you don't have on consoles. And I find myself more and more hating Nintendo and thinking about getting rid of my Switch 2 because of just how frustrated I am. And of course, this whole thing with Metroid Prime 4. I'm just going to go off into a side tangent on that. Like, I was willing to give him the benefit of the doubt about the talkie NPCs, and then I started seeing some of the footage and hearing the dialogue, and I'm just like, okay, I canceled my pre-order, and unless I get confirmation that it's like extremely minimal, or that there's a way to basically make it so that you can imagine that they're not even there. Like, I know you can turn down the volume of the dialogue, which would be helpful. If you can turn off the volume of the dialogue and turn off the subtitles, then maybe I could actually enjoy the game without having to listen to that stupid NPC. And I know that there's not even just one. There's like, I think there's 6 of them. And we don't know. I mean, I would imagine they're not all going to have such cringy writing, but at the same time, the fact that they have that at all, it's like, I'm sorry to everyone who has to deal with my generation's horrible writing. It's like, you guys had one job. All you had to do was make the game as good as the previous Metroid Prime games. Like, even the motorcycle thing, like, I'm not a fan of it, but as long as, if they didn't have the super talky NPCs, particularly the ones that have this cringy, horrendous dialogue, then it wouldn't bother me as much. because there were, I mean, even like Other M had some pretty talky NPCs. And then, of course, you had Samus talking quite a bit, and her dialogue was not well written, but it was still better than this. And, I mean, even though the voice acting itself was pretty bad, Other M was still a pretty decent Metroid game. Like, I still liked it. And, of course, I only spent $6 on it, so that'd also make it easier to like it. But spending $70 on Metroid Prime 4 with all that nonsense in there that I just don't want, like, until I get confirmation that it's actually not bad, I'm not buying the game. I'm just gonna be like, Metroid Prime 3 was the last one, and that's all there is to it. And then I'll be that much closer to getting rid of my Switch 2. I mean, like, honestly, the only thing that's still really keeping me wanting to keep my Switch 2 is, one, the hope that at some point they will actually update Xenoblade Chronicles X to give it 60 frames per second. But two, knowing that there's going to be more Monolith Soft games on there. Because I really, really love their games. And those games are the best as handheld games. Plain and simple. So, yeah. It's a hard spot to be in. And it's also the sunk cost thing. Like, I seriously, last week I was off back and forth on the possibility of, I'll sell my Switch 2, just get a Switch OLED again instead, have a second one of those, and then just never buy the Switch 2. And then I can work through my library with the better screen. And yeah, I have the worst Joy-Cons, which is disappointing, but at least I would be able to sleep at night knowing that I wasn't buying something that ultimately feels worthless. And then I keep reminding myself, but if they do bring something out later on that I actually really want to play, then I'll be regretting the fact that I sold it, because it's probably going to be more expensive in the future. And it's just, it's so stupid. Stupid. It's like, if Nintendo would put their games on PC, I would get rid of my Switch 2 completely, and I'd just be like, I'm just going to get another Steam Deck and call it good. And then, you know, with the physical games, I'll probably sell a bunch and then start buying the games digitally on PC as they go on sale or whatever. But, of course, none of that's going to happen, at least not anytime soon. So, okay, side tangent off. Let's get back into talking about the Steam Frame now. So give it to me. What you got?
This is definitely was definitely interesting to me. I mean, on one hand, I would definitely say, design-wise, it's a vast improvement over the Index, as you said, with the Valve Index. The thing about that one is you did need at least two. Well, I mean, you needed at least one. They recommended having two of the sensors placed around, so that way it would properly track your movements and stuff in the game. And so, I mean, having to set up all those sensors required you to have enough space, to move around and stuff, and make sure you also have enough space to set everything up, which was, I guess, one of the big drawbacks of the Index. So not needing that, having the sensors built onto the headset itself is definitely a vast improvement there. And I think that also, one of the biggest things is the fact that it does have it. They marketed sort of like as its own PC. That is a PC in of itself, that you can do things with it. I mean, you can even plug it up and use it as a desktop to like some sort of monitor or something like that. So it's definitely interesting in that aspect as well. I like the eye tracking tech that it has, so that way it, as you said before, it makes sure that the pixel density rate is much better, depending on where you're looking at. So I think that's definitely cool. One thing that was kind of weird to me, and I'm not certain how this is gonna play out, is where the I guess speaker is at, because based on what it looks like in the spec sheet, it looks like it's right near where the goggles are, which is weird because normally VR headsets have the headsets like right where your ears are, or they have some sort of headphones. So that's definitely kind of weird on that aspect, because that would just make it, or at least it seems to me that it would be harder for, or it would be easier for people to like hear what you're playing, which is if you're like playing it and you're trying to be quiet and stuff, that just the way it looks like it's not something that would be like an actual pair of headphones or something like that where only you're hearing it. Looks more like it's a speaker that is just loud enough that you can hear it, and maybe anyone who's close enough can hear it as well. So it's weird on that end. I do like that you can technically play your games with you, or play it like natively on there, which is cool because while it wouldn't be the same type of experience that you would have, it would give you a bit more immersion in games like like FPS games. So like if you're playing an FPS game, playing with the VR headset would be a different experience. Like I said, you wouldn't have the same type of experience if you were playing a game that was specifically designed for VR. Sort of like playing Doom VR versus playing just base Doom 2016, just because you don't have the same type of movement with your controllers and stuff. So it won't be the same, but I think it would definitely be neat to play in that aspect. The controllers definitely look pretty good. It looks sort of like it has this sort of like same type of design as a regular controller, and has all the buttons you would have on a Steam controller as well. I think for the most part, all the different button layouts and stuff. So that's definitely cool. As we mentioned earlier, the fact that you can just play games from a micro SD and transfer them around is definitely also great. I think mainly I would play something like this streaming it from more powerful hardware rather than just running it natively, just because I want to take advantage of it and make sure that the performance is the best it could be. But I mean, like, for games that are not as demanding or something that might be older, it might be fine to play those types of games, because if I'm playing something, say, that's capable of being played on a Steam Deck, granted, I believe that the Steam Deck is a little bit more powerful than the hardware in the in this, so I would use that as a ballpark measurement to decide if what of the type of performance I'm getting would be worth playing it natively. But it's definitely a nice option to have. Now this is sort of like what I also would like to see, is just like how it would compare with the original Index, which is why I was going to get the Index, just because I think it would be pretty neat to compare the two, and see sort of like all the improvements that Valve has made. I mean, I think that pretty much everything else with regards to this is pretty solid. And I mean, the one thing, and I guess this is also, again, all ties to the other points that we've made, is what is the price going to be like for this? I mean, now I believe, let me just confirm this, but I believe that the original headset, or the original let me confirm this actually. The original the original Index was, I think, if you got the complete bundle, was about $1,000. And considering the fact that you have less hardware now that you need versus the original one, I would like to say maybe this could be cheaper than that. I don't know, but I would kind of I would maybe guess that possibly maybe $800 would be my guess. At most I would say it's $900, and yeah, I would say that would be my guess as to the price what this would be, because I don't think it would be something, because it is just the headset and it is just the controllers. It wouldn't be, it's not like there's that much. I mean, sure, there's like newer tech in there that would be improvements, but I think because there's less that you have to package and stuff, it would make it cheaper theoretically. But yeah, all in all, this is interesting enough that I am definitely considering giving it a try.
I gotta say that this is something that this is probably the closest I've ever been to saying I'm gonna buy one. I still haven't decided anything. I'm very back and forth on it, but I do like the fact that it is wireless, that it's much less cumbersome than other headsets. You don't have to have it wired into, whatever device you're on. The fact that it doesn't have any sort of headphones, I actually think is kind of nice. I wasn't really sure what the setup was until you mentioned something about that, but that does make sense that it would just be kind of like a speaker that's just loud enough for you to hear it. And obviously, like, I don't think we've had... Did we get any sort of confirmation on that, or is that just your theory?
On what?
On the audio side.
The audio, that's just a theory. I mean, like, this, looking at the layout design, because they, on the spec sheet, it did have it said the speakers were, like, right around where the goggles are. So
okay.
It'd be, like...
That makes sense.
Right around here,
okay.
I guess.
So, yeah, I think that, that's something that, like, I don't know exactly how their VR headsets have worked, because I've never had one, but if that's the case, then that definitely makes it more appealing, because one of my concerns always was I don't like the idea of being completely closed off to everything around me, because I want to be able, like, especially if there's something wrong with my kids or my wife or whatever, I need to be able to address it immediately. And if I have, headphones on and my eyes are covered and everything else, and, like, I have no idea what's going on around me, it could cause problems. And so that's one of the reasons why I've never really been in favor of doing this. But if it has the speaker separately to where I could still be able to hear what's going on around me, then that would be obviously much less of a concern. The other thing with this is I really like the controllers. I like the design of those, and the fact that you do still get all the functionality you would get with normal VR controllers, with having the grip sense and all of that, for games that utilize that, which I think a lot of VR games do. And even though there's not a whole lot of VR games I would want to play, obviously Half-Life Alyx is the big one. That's one I absolutely want to play, especially if Half-Life 3 is indeed coming. But either way, I've always wanted to play it because I loved Half-Life, or Half-Life 2 at least, and the subsequent episodes. Then, of course, the fact that it has all the face buttons and D-pad and everything is really good. Because, like, I remember trying to use the PlayStation Move controllers, and I hated those. Like, I was really excited to check them out when my friend had them, and I wanted to test them out. So I tested it out on Heavy Rain on PS3. And then I was going to test them on Infamous 2, because that also supported them. Because it's like, motion controls for Infamous? Heck yes. Those controllers are awful. I mean, like, I'm sure that in terms of how they worked, that they were really good, but they were so uncomfortable to hold, and they were just, like, really awkward with the button layout and everything, and I hated them so much. And looking at these, it's like, okay, this looks good. Like, this looks like something that would actually be enjoyable. It's kind of like basically modern Joy-Cons. And, definitely more advanced technology than you have in... Or I'm not Joy-Cons, like a modern Wii Remote nunchuck. And yeah, fancier technology as well over the Joy-Cons as well, which, I mean, the Joy-Cons have definitely improved with the Switch 2, and I do like the design in general, but I think that the size and everything, especially of the Steam Frame controllers, looks like it would be really comfortable to hold and a lot easier for hands as big as mine. And I mean, I don't even have the biggest hands, but as big as mine are, like, the Joy-Cons are just way too small for me. The Joy-Con 2s are better than the originals, but they're still very small for my hands. And, yeah. So, I like that. I like those aspects. I like the fact that it can play some games natively. I mean, obviously it's not going to play everything natively, but I still like the idea of at least some games I would be able to play natively, and that thing of basically being able to have a screen display in front of your face like you're looking at a TV. I really like that. That was one thing I never thought of. It's like, oh, that actually could be really cool. Especially like if, for example, if I wanted to sit outside and enjoy the nice weather, but it's just a little too bright to play anything on a handheld device. It's be like, oh, I can stream from my PC in my room, because it's just right out, very close by. And then I could play a game that way. Or, if it's a weaker, a game that doesn't require a lot, like a 2D platform or whatever, I could do that. It's like there's lots of situations where I could see that being really useful. Or like when we're on a long car trip, I could do that, and that would be really cool. I could see a lot of situations where it would be really neat. And of course, obviously, if I got one of those, I would have to play Half-Life Alyx. Without question. That would be day one. Yes, I'm playing this immediately. As soon as I have the chance. But it's such a... It's something where I still don't know. Like, I'm still a little hesitant because of still being a bit closed off from people. Now, like I said, the fact that it doesn't have headphones built in is definitely something that makes it more appealing than it would be otherwise, just because then I know I'm not completely closed off from everyone around me. And it makes it a lot more tempting. Right now, the biggest issue is the price. Now, there was a rumor a while back, and this may have changed, whether it was true back then or not, that supposedly there was going to be a bundle that would include the Steam machine with the Steam controller, of course, by default, plus another Steam controller, and the Steam frame for $1,200 for the 3. If that was the case, it would be really hard to resist, because that's actually a pretty good deal. To get all 3 of those, because it's basically like you're spending $600 a piece for the Steam machine and the Steam frame, and then you get an extra Steam controller. And if that was actually what Valve decided to do, man, that would be hard to resist. And like I think more and more about, especially the idea of just being able to play Steam library games, and being able to plug in an SD card directly and just play games off of there, for the games that I can actually handle. And that's just really cool. And, being able to play games streaming from my PC onto the headset would be really cool. There's just a lot of things about this that really impress me. And I'd say that this is the most likely I am to actually buy a VR headset. Like, there were times in the past where I was tempted by stuff, but usually, I think the one that was most tempting to me was originally the Index, but then I ultimately settled on, I would buy it basically for like 1 or 2 games, and then I would probably never use it again. And then the PSVR 2, especially because it's compatible with PC now, but I still just had kind of some hesitancy because I don't know how many games it actually works with, and of course it's still just like, as much as it seems like it's a really good headset and I've heard really good things about it, I'm not sure. But this one, it's not even the fact that it's made by Valve, because if that was all it took, I would have bought the Index years ago. But it's just, there's just enough features to where it's more and more tempting. And right now, the number one thing is going to be price. What's the price? What's the price of these devices? Is there going to be a bundle that's a reasonable price to where I could be like, oh, I got a bonus at work? Well, I guess I'm going to use that bonus, and I'm going to buy this set of stuff and just get all 3 of them at once, and then, would be great. But I don't know. I'm the only thing I know for sure, well, I should say, God willing, assuming I am alive and well and employed and everything else, I will definitely get a Steam controller. Maybe 2. The Steam machine and the Steam frame are the 2 things that I'm not entirely sure about. But between the 2 of those devices, I think I would probably be a bit more likely to get the Steam frame. but honestly, I don't know. Like I said, it's hard because everything actually looks really good, and for the type, I mean, the more I think about the type of functions that they could have, given what I have to work with, especially because of my massive Steam library and all the games that could easily be played on the Steam machine, it's just more and more tempting, and we'll have to wait and see. The biggest issue, like I said, is price. That's the number one issue, and we'll see how things look when we actually get that information. So I think I'm going to cut myself off there with what I have to say.
Yeah, that was definitely going to be one of the last things that I brought up to wrap things up, is just the pricing of everything. And I really do hope that there is a bundle. And, the price you mentioned about the rumor, if it's like $1,200, that's an instant sell for me. Like, I would definitely buy that because, getting, like you said, getting both the headset and the Steam machine for $600 plus the extra controller, that's that's very enticing right there.
Yeah.
And I mean, even if it were $1,500, that would still be reasonable enough for me that I could say, yeah, that I would be willing to do that. So if they do have a bundle and it is somewhat cheaper than buying each of them separately, that would I would do that. I would take that. But we'll definitely just have to wait and hear more official details. Now, while Valve did say it's coming in early 2026, do you have any sort of idea of when it could possibly be, when all this could be coming?
I really don't know. I mean, they said early 2026. I would assume that means Q1. So, if I had to put out a guess, I would say last day of February, like they did with the Steam Deck. It would be when they start selling it. That would just be my guess.
I did not think about that.
Of course, I could almost see them releasing it just before my birthday, which, I mean, of course, it'd be my 39th birthday. If it was my 40th birthday, it'd just be like, this is going to be my 40th, my midlife crisis birthday present, and this is all I'm getting for the year. But I mean, assuming it does come out around February, that is, when I'm turning 39, and actually 39, like not 39 for the 5th time or whatever, like some people, because I don't have a problem with getting older. But yeah, that would be my prediction if I was going to put out a date. I'd say February 28th.
Yeah, I sort of had February as my guess, like maybe around mid to late February was what I was thinking. I definitely didn't think January, otherwise they would have said, I think at this point, that's only 2 months away, they would have said that. Yeah. And maybe early March, but I definitely had an eye on mid to late February. But I'm hoping with that being around the corner, we'll hear more details relatively soon.
Yeah, I mean, the more I think about this, though, I'm leaning very heavily, assuming the price is reasonable, to just getting all three. And I mean, more likely than not, if I was going to do that, it would be either using a little bit of tax return money or using my bonus. I wouldn't be spending nearly as much as I did this year on PC parts, doing all the major upgrades I did on my PC. Because if I was going to spend that much, I mean, there's not a chance that I would buy those if it was that expensive. I mean, I'm not even sure if I'd be willing to go as high as $1,500 personally, but I also, have a wife and 3 kids to provide for, so for me, it's a little harder to justify than it is for you. So, but we'll see what happens. When we get the pricing, we'll determine it or not. I'm sure that as my wife is listening to this episode, she'll probably say to me afterwards, So you're gonna get them all, because she knows me. But once again, the price is going to be the major determining factor. But I'm leaning very heavily towards, if the price is right, getting all three, and finally diving into VR after all these years of staying away from it. So we'll see. All right. Any other thoughts on the Steam hardware reveals?
No, sir.
All right. Well, while we are on the topic, I think now's a good time to talk about this rumor about Half-Life 3. So you want to go ahead and take us away on that one?
Sure thing. So this was noticed about on Steam regarding let me see, I can't remember who pointed this out first, but essentially if you go to Steam, if you search for any Valve game, and this is what's pointed out in Insider Gaming, if you look for a Valve game and you go into the company's name, that is Valve, and you go to their main page, you'll go and see the company's existing games and upcoming portfolio. And on the upcoming releases, there are 4 products mentioned. First one is Deadlock, which we all know about. The next one is going to be the Steam controller. The third thing is going to be the Steam frame, and the fourth thing is going to be the Steam machine. And you might say, all right, that's all well and dandy, but however, on the left side, if you select all the labels, if you select all in the label for the left column, it will say 5 items instead of, even though there are only 4 items that are being displayed. And the reason why some people mention this and have wondered, well, could that mean there is another game possibly coming up? At some point there was a possible Half-Life 3 trailer that was rumored to be in production, but of course we've been talking a lot, about possible Half-Life 3 mentioned here and there, about the game being developed and being started and actually finished. The script was already I heard was finished like some years ago, but the game never was actually made. So that could be something that happens. And I've got stuff that I would say more on that, but that is essentially what is being speculated right now. So before I go into my thoughts on this, what do you have to say about this rumor?
Well, one thing that I'm trying to figure out here, looking at this, is that the picture brings up one question that makes me, the only thing that makes me question this. And of course, first of all, I'm trying to figure out exactly what search they did, because the image doesn't really make it clear what search they did in order to find this information. Let's see here. So let me just back up on what it is that I'm trying to say here. So the image that they show on the Insider Gaming article, it shows, when they have selected all, that there's 5 things, and of course there's only 4 items. Okay. But then it also but there's also a thing right underneath where it says upcoming releases. It says results may exclude some products based on your content or language preferences. So that's something that makes me wonder what's being excluded. And is that something that, is it that basically they're just leaving out that information and nobody else noticed that? Or is it that that's the way it is by default? And I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt and say that's the way it is by default. And, part of it is probably a little bit of hopium as well. I'm trying to figure out exactly how to how to get that same page as it's displayed on there, because I can't tell if they searched under Valve or what they searched under. That's the main thing that I'm having a hard time finding.
I think if you look for a game, like if you said Half-Life and then click like Valve, the publisher developer, then it goes to that
Oh,
page,
gotcha.
and then
okay.
you scroll down, and you can see like all the details for the company.
Let's see here. It's possible that really what it
Okay.
comes down to is just that they simply that the preferences are just having to do with the. I mean, it says content or language preferences, so it might just be because the language preferences are set to English.
Actually, I do see it. I do see upcoming releases say all 5 for our
So
only the 4 items.
how did you find that? That's the part I'm having a hard time
So
figuring
if
out.
you say go to like any Half-Life game, and then you click on wait a minute, let me go through
Okay,
this
here we go.
here.
I see what you're saying.
So if you like pull up Half-Life, and then if you go to developer publisher, click the name Valve, and then it will go to their developer page, and if you scroll down, you should see upcoming releases.
Gotcha. Okay. Upcoming releases. All right. Content or language preferences. Let's see what happens. Show titles not in my language. Just in case that's. Okay. All right. Go back and see. All right, upcoming releases. Okay. So yeah. Yeah, okay, so that does answer my question. So it's not at all that it doesn't have anything to do with their filters, because like I just looked at my filters, and the only thing that I have blocked out is that basically it doesn't show it initially wasn't showing like just a handful of games specifically that I didn't want to see, which were primarily things like stuff related to Warframe, and initially I had Counter-Strike 2 blocked off because I just don't care. But yeah, now looking at it again, it's the same thing. Like it is indeed showing. In fact, I'll just take a screenshot so I can put that in the video. What it looks like on mine. But yeah, it just shows. It shows exactly what they on there, just with a different screenshot for Deadlock. Actually, no, I guess it is the same screenshot. I just don't have it in my library because, I don't. And I probably wouldn't be all that interested in it anyways. It's a multiplayer game. But, nevertheless, that's very interesting. So, beyond that, of course, the hopium is very high. I mean, there's been rumors going around about this for a long time now. And, we've talked about it in the past. We've had an entire, episode where we focused pretty heavily on it, or two. And it's just one of those things where it makes sense that they would finally do it. And, of course, something that was pointed out, I think it's maybe tomorrow. I could be wrong about that. It's possible the video I was watching was actually from Monday, but someone was saying that the anniversary of Half-Life 2, I think, is either of Half-Life or Half-Life 2, is coming up very soon, like this week. So it was either today, which is Tuesday the 18th, or it's tomorrow, Wednesday the 19th, and I don't know which one it would be, but if it's one of those, that definitely makes it like, okay, more potential evidence. And there's been all sorts of other stuff. There was there was that one code name. I'm trying to remember. Oh yeah, November 19th. That's tomorrow. Oh. So November 19th, 1998 is when Half-Life originally came out. So it could be before this episode even goes up that Half-Life 3 will have already been revealed. And that would be amazing if it happened. Just have like, on the one hand, I almost would love to be able to have it in this episode, but as it stands, we're already at over 2 hours, and we're not even done through the topics yet. So regardless, I'm gonna say right now, Hopium and everything else is present, and I think that November 19th we're gonna see Half-Life 3 finally. That it's actually gonna happen, and we'll find out tomorrow whether or not that's actually the case. And it could very well be that I just still have egg on my face. And I mean, it's once again one of those things where, okay, is it a big deal? No, it's not a big deal if it doesn't happen. We've waited this long. If it never happens, it never happens. It's not the end of the world by any stretch. But I mean, there's a lot of smoke. And usually when there's smoke, there's fire. Especially when there's that much smoke. And the fact that, that's this 5 titles listed like that. That's like, I think it's coming. I think it's coming. And I'm looking forward to seeing if this is actually a legitimate thing. And one of the things that makes me most excited about the idea of this coming is the possibility, well, not only the possibility, but the likelihood that it will be well optimized and it will run well on the Steam Deck. Because this is Valve we're talking about. They care about that kind of stuff. They're PC gamers. They're a PC gaming company. They're making a PC. I do not believe for a second that it's not going to be well optimized. Now, is it going to run at 90 frames per second on the Steam Deck OLED? I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. But I do think that because they are good at what they do and they actually care about it, and with as long as they've been working on this, I do think we could see 60 frames per second on the Steam Deck with Half-Life 3. And, of course, my hope is that if it does actually get revealed, that this is going to be on every platform, same day, multiple storefronts, not just Steam, that it will come to Epic and Windows Store and whatever else. I mean, probably not like Battle.net, for example, but all the major stores. I guess probably not like Ubisoft, but at least Steam and Battle.net and probably Amazon or not Battle.net, I'm sorry, Steam and Epic and Amazon and Windows Store, and then obviously PlayStation and Xbox and Nintendo. Even though Nintendo, I'm thinking if it does come there, it will probably be later, mostly just because of how Nintendo's been about dev kits. But if this really does happen tomorrow, it's just going to completely break the internet, and it's going to be glorious, and it will be really fun to talk about and everything else. And I mean, the one thing I will say is the rumor with this that we didn't mention, or at least you may have mentioned it, and maybe I got distracted while I was checking things, but is that this would be launching with the Steam machine. The same date as the Steam machine, the Steam frame, and the new Steam controller. So, if that's actually the case, then excellent. That'd be perfect timing. I mean, even though I think it would almost be funny if it was exclusive to the Steam platform. I think it would be funny, but I wouldn't be in favor of it at the same time. Like, I think it would be funny for a couple of days just because of all the salt and, all the people who are who will cope and seethe about it, but at the same time I don't actually want it to be exclusive because I want everybody to be able to play it. And, that really is my real position. I just also enjoy the salt. So it's a little bit of both, but it would be funny if it just completely broke the internet. Well, I mean, it will break the internet if it happens. There's no question about it. I mean, it's going to. And, yeah. Anyway, that's all I have to say.
Yeah, this definitely, I'm going to actually be on the boat where I don't believe, regardless of what happens tomorrow, it will have an impact on what happens. I actually am. I think I've huffed enough hopium that I believe that Half-Life 3 is coming. And the really reason I feel so confident in saying that is just because the trio of hardware we received is evidence enough. I mean, the fact that, there have been rumors like, oh, we're going to get like a Steam machine coming. It's coming. It's coming. It's coming. And we finally got it. And, initially I was thinking to myself, I think Deadlock I wouldn't care about it, but, it would make sense that would be a launch game for the Steam machine.
Yeah.
But then hearing about Half-Life 3, I'm like, that would be a bigger launch title than Deadlock. That would definitely be something great. And something I even thought about is, while it didn't release, while it released way later than the Index, if you bought an Index from Valve, and I think for whatever units they have, because they discontinued selling the Index, so like they're selling throughout whatever stock they have left.
Mm-hmm.
But if you buy an Index from Valve, it comes with Half-Life Alyx.
Yeah.
So what would be cool is if you bought a Steam machine, if that came with Half-Life 3. So, if that came bundled, that would be like, ooh, okay.
That would make sense for them to do that too. And I could see them doing that. I mean, that is the type of move Valve would pull.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so like I'm like, ooh, that really just makes me really think it's gonna happen. So I mean, I think it just feels like it makes too much sense for to not come, since we've got such a good hardware. I mean, the thing about PC is that you don't need to have banger exclusives, because like as you said before, you have the freedom. It's like on your console, that is sort of like the big selling point, is the fact that you have the exclusives, is because oh, we've got these games. But on PC it's like, okay, exclusive, what be? We don't care about that, because we just have such vast library of games to play. But if Half-Life 3 did come, that would be an awesome way to launch the Steam machine, as well as like the other hardware. So I really think that could be coming, and I really hope that it is a launch title, because that would be worth it for like a lot of people, and it would really, I think, it would really help sell units. Not that Valve really cares about it, but I think it would definitely help with selling Steam machine units. So I do think that is a huge possibility, especially considering the fact that we both here have verified that going to the Steam page shows that there are 4 items, but 5 are mentioned as being the sum total. So it's like, well, what's number 5 then?
Yeah.
But I think even possibly one of the biggest things that point to this being happening is the fact that Valve decided to have 3 items right now.
Right, exactly.
So, you know, they're already trying to subtly project the images.
They've demonstrated they can count to 3. So, the thing that also just kind of occurred to me, as you were mentioning about Deadlock being a launch title, the idea of that. I could see them very easily doing Deadlock and Half-Life at the same time. Mm-hmm. Because then they'd have both a multiplayer and a single player title at the same time. And it's it'd be the first time in a while that they've had, well, both. I mean, I could be wrong, but I think the last single player game they did was Portal 2. That can't be right, but that might be the last single player game they did. I mean, it was single and multiplayer because it had the co-op, but it was primarily a single player game. And I mean, they've done, I think, Counter-Strike. I mean, they did Counter-Strike Go, which, as far as I know, just replaced the original Counter-Strike, and then Counter-Strike 2. Maybe I'm wrong on that.
Yeah, that would be the last one they did there.
I'll have to look at that, actually. But oh, no, that's not actually true. Half-Life Alyx was their last single-player game. Which is that, of course, it was, VR exclusive. So, and I mean, they did have a couple of, I mean, they had the Aperture Desk Job, which is just really a a tech demo for the Steam Deck, but which I still have yet to actually play that. I should do that one of these days.
Really?
And to library. Yeah. But yeah. I might actually need to check that out. Maybe after I finish up Moon Scars, maybe I'll jump into just do the desk job real quick, since it's short and sweet and just something fun to mess around with. Plus, it's supposed to be funny.
So. It is.
Yeah. So yeah, I think we're in agreement. Half-Life 3 is going to be revealed. Do you think it's going to be revealed tomorrow, or do you just think in general?
In general, I definitely say yes. I think I'll lean and say they'll go ahead and announce it tomorrow.
I'm with you. Yeah. I'm going to say it's going to be announced tomorrow. Before this podcast goes up, it will already have been announced. Of course, assuming that is the case, I'll make sure to make a note on our page that we recorded before it was announced, but we did talk about the possibility of it being announced, and we'll talk about it in full on next week's episode, considering how much time we've spent just talking about the Steam hardware. All right. Any other thoughts on that?
No, sir.
All right. So we do have one final combination topic, and we'll just talk as much as we have whatever we have to say on it. But we got not one but two new PlayStation IPs revealed this week, or well, I should say two new games within existing PlayStation IPs, but neither of them are coming to PlayStation consoles. We have first Horizon, what's the name of it? Horizon
Steel Frontiers?
Steel Frontiers, right. And then Ratchet and Clank, I need to bring up the names here. I have the videos saved on here, but I can't remember. Ratchet and Clank Ranger Rumble. So Horizon Steel Frontiers was designed first for mobile, but is also coming to PC. And it is an MMORPG in the Horizon universe developed by NCSoft. And then you have the developer OBB developed Ratchet and Clank Ranger Rumble for iOS and Android. And that is a free-to-play arena shooter. And I mean, it's like a... how do they describe it? Multiplayer arena shooter. That was what I was looking for. So, I'll let you take away whichever one you want to talk about first.
Okay, yeah. So I guess I'll start off with Horizon. So this one, I'm partially... I can understand, but I'm also still surprised as to why this skipped the PS5, because this is, a Sony IP. I'll be honest, for a mobile game, this looks a whole lot better than what I would typically expect from a mobile game. It kind of also reminds me kind of a bit of Monster Hunter, the way the gameplay looks. It looks graphically speaking, it looks impressive enough. Like I said, for a mobile game, it looks pretty decent. That being said, it is an MMO, so it's not something that I would necessarily be interested in, but it does look good. Now, it's weird that this game is coming to PC and mobile, but skipping the PS5, and I really don't understand. I don't understand why, but I do understand why. I have heard that the reason why it is being skipped is because of the fact that this is one of two games that are being developed, and the other mobile game that is coming, the other mobile game is also coming to PS5 supposedly, and so they didn't want to sort of, I guess, cannibalize, sales, since it's going to be on PS5, and on that end, I don't know why they even have two games to begin with, two different mobile games. It just doesn't make sense to me, but I've heard that speculation, that's the reason why, so it makes sense. But at the same time, the fact that a PlayStation IP is coming to mobile and PC but not the PS5 is just funny. Additionally, you know, I while we don't know what the gameplay is going to be like, it would be kind of sad if the gameplay wasn't like this, or at least something that looks this fun and interesting, and it's something that is, you know, possibly a bit worse to a degree. But yeah, it's definitely interesting. And I mean, like I said, if this wasn't an MMO, I would give it some thought, but just to the fact that it is one, I'm like, I could just play a different type of game or just like play Monster Hunter in general, instead of this. But I mean, it does look nice. I definitely do have to give it credit for being a decently looking game. Although granted, thinking about it, I don't know if this is PC footage or mobile footage, because that would definitely...
It's gotta be PC. There's no way this is mobile footage.
Yeah. But that is everything I have to say about that game in particular.
Yeah, so watching, I mean, like the initial trailer, I mean, that was very clearly all just pre-rendered footage, you know, nothing, it wasn't gameplay at all, but they do later on in the video get into showing some actual gameplay. And I mean, yes, of course, it's all just pre-alpha right now. But for one, I know that there's not a chance, even the strongest mobile phones are not gonna, the game just isn't gonna look that good. There's just zero chance of that. So it's obviously PC footage that they're showing us, and with that, I'm still a bit skeptical, because like I remember all the footage we saw for Destiny Rising before that came out, and that game looks like trash on phones compared to what they showed in the trailers. At least on my phone. Now, granted, my phone is a few years old, but it was a high-end phone at the time. It's a Samsung Galaxy S22 Ultra. So it's, like I said, it's a 3-year-old phone, but it was the top of the line at the time. And like Destiny Rising, it just looks like garbage, and it doesn't run very well either on my phone. And that one, I would argue, visually doesn't, I mean would not really compare to this Horizon game. Or I should say, shouldn't be as demanding as this Horizon game, because the Horizon game has a lot more like visual effects going on in the environments and everything, especially with the lighting and the shadows and everything else. And so I remain very skeptical about how good it's actually going to look. Now, in terms of the actual like gameplay footage, it looked like it was very much a cross between Horizon and Monster Hunter, because it was a lot more melee focused than Horizon, because Horizon is very, very ranged focused. Like, there's a limited amount of melee gameplay, but the melee is not good. It wasn't good in Zero Dawn. It's better in Forbidden West, but it's still not very good. It's very clear that the game is designed primarily around ranged combat. And the ranged combat feels great in Horizon. But the melee just isn't good. And when I look at the footage for this game, regardless of whether it's mobile or PC, which, like I said, I'm extremely skeptical that it's actually mobile footage. It looks very visually impressive. And one of the things that I actually find kind of funny is looking at the difference in how the characters are designed in this compared to the proper Sony-made Horizon games, because they're so much better looking. Like the people, I mean, well, I guess you could argue to a degree that the style for the characters is a little more, I guess you could say, realistic, maybe a little more grounded on the proper Horizon games. Like, you look at the female characters in particular in this NCSoft developed game, and it's like they're all dolled up, you know, wearing makeup and like very pretty and everything else, compared with the characters designed in Horizon Zero Dawn and Forbidden West, where it's very clear that they intentionally didn't make them look nearly as good, and in some cases made them look worse than the real life actors and actresses look. But yeah, it's just kind of interesting. Something else is that there was like one or two spots in the footage where for this for some of the multiplayer stuff, some of the MMO parts, where the footage actually like really got really choppy, because it was really noticeable, because most of the footage looks really good and is really smooth and fast paced and everything, clearly running at 60 frames per second. And then you just see like this one section where it stutters really badly and gets kind of choppy, and it just seems very likely that, well, I mean, obviously the fact that it's pre-alpha, that's probably the major reason, but I'm very curious to see what the final product is actually going to look like. And with it being an MMO, are they going to is it going to be more free to play to where it would be something we could actually test out? Or is it going to be something where you have to pay a subscription fee in order to test it out? Since it's going to be on PC and mobile, then I would guess that it's probably not going to require PlayStation Plus to play. But I don't know. It's very interesting to me. And the fact that this is so reminiscent of Monster Hunter, like ridiculously so, while still maintaining a lot of the look of the actual proper Horizon series, is just very interesting to me. And I think that might be part of the reason why it's not coming to PlayStation, because while I do think Horizon, particularly its ranged combat, is very good, it's a lot slower paced than the footage for this MMO. And as you said, it could be because of the fact that they're supposed to be developing another online Horizon game, like Guerrilla is supposed to be developing a separate one that's online multiplayer. But I mean, this one does at least show that this type of thing could work as a multiplayer game. It's just, obviously you wouldn't have Girl Boss Aloy. Instead, you have a bunch of people who all utilize the technology and everything like that. I don't know. It's interesting, and I will probably, assuming this does in fact, if it ends up being free to play, I will check it out, because I'm just very curious about it. Now, am I going to really play it? No, not a chance, because it's an MMO and I don't play MMOs, but I could definitely check it out. And I do still think that it's funny that, as much as PlayStation is very much about keeping their tentpole titles exclusive, they have a brand new game in one of their tentpole first-party IPs, even if it's not developed by them directly, that isn't even coming to PlayStation. And it's like, I guess it's maybe because of the fact that PlayStation wants that money. They need that money. They really, really do. And, despite what PlayStation fanboys have continually tried to tell us and tell themselves, they need to recognize Sony wants that money, and they will get it wherever they can get it. And yes, this isn't developed by them, as by Guerrilla, but it doesn't change the fact that this is Guerrilla's IP, and that it's not even coming to PlayStation. That's ridiculous. Now, could it come again down the line? Maybe, but if they are, assuming they are still doing the separate Horizon game, multiplayer game developed by Guerrilla, then it would make more. I mean, it does make sense that they would keep it separate, because they want to be able to, avoid any sort of confusion, and also cannibalizing of sales. But what would be funny, something else that I just thought of, is if we end up with not only this one, but the other Horizon online game coming to PC. Because then PC would have more Horizon games than PlayStation. That would actually be really funny. Now, will that happen? I don't know. I think that any thought of PlayStation not putting these supposed rumors that were based off of speculation from Jez Corden about there not being any more that PlayStation is going to stop putting their first player tentpole titles on PC. I think that that's, well, it's believing that it's true is just hopium, because there's no, like, Jez even said that he doesn't have any sources for this, and this is just his speculation. And so it's, yeah. Anyway, that all being said, I think it should come to PlayStation. I don't see any reason why it doesn't, except, I mean, I'm sure that they have a reason, of course, but it's both. I want it to come to PlayStation because PlayStation, I think it should come everywhere. I think it should even go to Xbox, and theoretically it should be able to play on Nintendo Switch too if they can do it on mobile, but they have to actually put forth the effort. And who knows what exactly the plans are with that. I don't think it's going to remain just PC and mobile. It's just initially that's where it's going to be, because it was developed, of course, first for mobile. But yeah, that's basically all I have to say on that one. All right, so then we have Ratchet and Clank Ranger Rumble. What are your thoughts on that one?
This one, I'm definitely a bit more puzzled with this one as far as it being only a mobile game. Unlike with Horizon Steel Frontiers, I'm really wondering why this one wasn't available on PC or PlayStation, because I mean, it's not like there's any type of game that's competing with it. It's just its own standalone game. I mean, standalone as far as like it being what it is. So I'm not certain why that's the case here. And I mean, even if you would say, well, this type of game, console gamers wouldn't really care too much about. I mean, I feel like this could still do. You could still do something like this on PC, just because with these types of games, like, I mean, it's not the same genre, but the same type of free-to-play games like League of Legends, Dota, you know, I mean, I guess Fortnite is also in console too. So you got Fortnite. So like the type of free-to-play games are available. So I'm not certain why this wouldn't be on there. I mean, even think about it now with the Fortnite being on PlayStation, you know, that's a free-to-play game. This game could have been on PlayStation as well. So I'm really just confused as to that. Just in general, as the game goes, I mean, I'm not a big arena shooter person anyway, so like this type of game wouldn't really appeal to me. But you know, Sony is just, you know, of course, expanding, trying to get some of that money, and I understand that, you know, playing a game on mobile is one of the least costly ways to do it, but it also has the biggest chance at returning some revenue just because of the free-to-play microtransaction aspect of it. So I understand that, but again, I just am puzzled as to why it's only mobile. That's the only thing I would say that is confusing. But I guess though, at the end of the day, this is another PlayStation game that's not coming to PlayStation.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, this one I look at it and I think it looks fun. I don't like arena shooters. Like, I'm just not interested in that. But like, I compare this with like the offerings that Nintendo has put out, their first party games they put on mobile. Like, their mobile games look like mobile games. I mean, and while yes, this one, I mean, it does look like a mobile game, but obviously a big part of it is just because technology's gotten better and everything else. But this one, I look at it and I see this one is like much more the kind of game where if they put it on PlayStation fans would eat it up. And I wouldn't blame them, because, I mean, Ratchet and Clank is a fun IP. And an arena shooter kind of thing, especially when there hasn't been a new Ratchet and Clank game since 2021. It would make perfect sense for them to put it on PlayStation as well. But of course, obviously it's going to be free to play, so it's going to have lots of microtransactions and all that, most likely. It's going to be very heavily monetized, and how much that's going to appeal is going to depend, but I can guarantee you that PlayStation fans, and this isn't saying anything bad about them, would happily get this game and play it. Some of them would spend money on it, and others would just do the free-to-play stuff, and they'd be good. But I don't know, it is kind of baffling that this isn't coming anywhere else. I mean, I'm sure a big part of it is because it's free to play and it's going to have really gross monetization involved, but I mean, like, even you look at a game like Diablo Immortal, which, came out for mobile and PC at the same time. That one had really, really horrible monetization, but it still came to both platforms. And then you have this that, it's probably going to have really horrible monetization, but it's only coming to mobile. And obviously, mobile is definitely the biggest platform, without question. And it will probably do very well there, especially because the game actually looks fun. But it still just has... I mean, it's still just baffling that this isn't coming to PlayStation. And, I mean, I'm sure that we'll probably, sometime in the next couple of years, get a reveal regarding the next Ratchet and Clank game. But, of course, they still have to get Wolverine out first, and since it's Insomniac developing both, it kind of makes sense. And obviously this one's not being developed directly by Insomniac, but I would assume that they're still at least involved in some way or another. It's just not... probably they're not really developing the game. It's probably more they're consulting and that sort of thing. But yeah. If this was something you could do split screen multiplayer on, or just... Well, I mean, I guess it would be online multiplayer, but I mean, split screen multiplayer would probably be a lot of fun on a game like this. Yeah. So. That's all I have to say on that one.
Same here.
All right. Well, I'm obviously losing my voice from all this talking, so let's get into our recommendations and dissuasions. Why don't you start us off?
All right. This one is actually going to be a bit more of a direct recommendation from me to you, more likely. And so this is actually going to be Salt and Sanctuary. This is a 2D, since you sort of enjoyed Moonscars, I think you'll definitely enjoy this one. It is a 2D Metroidvania Souls-like, and I played this some years ago, and this was actually one of the first Steam games that I had bought and played, and one of my first introductions to the Souls-like genre, and it's definitely pretty good. It's definitely got the mechanics and different builds you can make from a Dark Souls game. It has the backtracking and abilities that you would have from a Metroidvania, and it has different quest lines that you would have in a Souls-like game. Has a couple different endings, but has a lot of different bosses. I think it's definitely a pretty fun game, so that is my recommendation, is Salt and Sanctuary.
Nice. Well, I added it to my wish list at least, and I'll keep an eye out for it. Do you know if it's on GOG as well?
I believe it is on GOG.
Okay. I'll keep my eyes peeled for a deal on that one. I think I have a couple other 2D Metroidvania Souls-likes. I mean, I definitely still have Hollow Knight and Silksong to potentially go through at some point, but right now I'm not really sure what I'm playing next once I finish Moonscars. It may end up being Nier Automata, but I haven't really decided yet. So, but yeah, good stuff. I think I had another recommendation that I was originally going to write down, but I didn't write it down this morning. So the one thing I do have a recommendation for is fajitas, because I made fajitas for dinner tonight, and it was very good. And I mean, fajitas are pretty much always good. Like, I guess that's not entirely true. There is one Mexican restaurant in our town that for some reason quite a few people we know seem to like, but every time we've tried it, I mean, like, I've tried it once with my wife. We went there, and she unfortunately went there twice because the second time it was with a group of people who wanted to go there. But the meat was always tough and oversalted, and it was just not good. The food was bad. It was bad Mexican food. Like, it made Taco Bell seem like gourmet by comparison. And I mean, like, Taco Bell tastes decent. I think that the portion sizes suck nowadays compared to what they used to be. But anyway, and I'm saying that as someone who used to be fatter than I am, that the portion sizes were bigger when I was fatter than they are at my current size. So anyway, but yeah, fajitas are great. They're yummy. Whether you make them yourself or get them that someone else makes them, fajitas are yummy. So that's my recommendation.
Very good, very tasty.
All right, dissuasions.
My dissuasion is going to be, if you are going to pre-order any type of model kit, primarily ones that come from Bandai or Capcom, do not pre-order them from Amazon, just because I have had so many experiences with them canceling my pre-orders. I really could have just pre-ordered somewhere else and gotten the item, even if it would have cost me about $20 more than from Amazon. It would have been worth it rather than missing out and then possibly having to pay $40, $50 more from scalpers afterwards. So definitely do not pre-order model kits from Amazon.
That reminds me of what it was that I was going to mention earlier when you were talking at the beginning of the episode. You talking about that you had originally ordered and was canceled the Millennium Puzzle, and I was just thinking that if you had actually successfully assembled it, you would have had like big spiky yellow hair. You would have had a real deep voice.
Yes.
And be talking about the heart of the cards. It's time to duel. Kaiba.
Yes. Oh, man.
Good stuff. Okay. All right. My dissuasion is, if you are up really early in the morning, and when I say really early, I mean like before 5 o'clock in the morning, and you are wanting breakfast, don't go out to get breakfast unless you know that there's something open where you can actually get something, because otherwise it's just going to be a wasted trip. There are places that are open 24 hours and you can get something, but I was just looking to grab something and then come back home, and there wasn't anything available like that. So it was a mistake on my part, and I wasted more time than I should have. If I had just made something at home, I would have saved myself a lot of time, but either way, it is what it is. So, yeah. All right. Where can people find you?
They can find me on my channel. I am Xeracon. That's IAMXERACON. So youtube.com/@IamXeracon. I put out 2 videos. I finally put out my full review for Expedition 33. So that is up on the channel. And while I doubt that either of them are still available at this point, I have, or at least had 2 Steam codes for Expedition 33, so like if you go to the video, you could grab one. Chances are they've already been claimed, but you can go ahead and try and see if they're still there or not. So yeah, I have that, and then earlier today, while we probably talked about more in depth, I did have a video talking about the Steam hardware that went up, so that is also available. But I think this podcast went to way more depth, and we got into the nitty-gritty aspects of that. So
Yeah.
that's always available if you want to check that out as well. But yeah, that's what I have for that channel. And then I have my other channel, Justin's Bible Blog. That's at Justin's Bible Blog. No new content as of the last time we met, but I do have, I think, one topic I want to talk about for a later video. But yeah.
Sounds good. Yeah, I did not see the videos pop up in my feed, so I'll have to look those up, because I definitely want to see them. I mean, yeah, of course, I've heard lots of praise from you about Expedition 33, but I still want to check out the video and your other thoughts as well, so I'll check that out. You can find me on my YouTube gaming channel at the Frozen Gamer 87. There's nothing new that's been put up recently, and I don't know when I'm gonna get around to putting up something else, because we just got a bunch of busy days coming up. So I'm not gonna promise anything one way or another, but there's still my Why I Love PC Gaming video essay, my unstructured video essay, or unscripted but mostly organized video essay. So if you want to check that out, or just check out the individual parts, there's also a playlist with all the different segments from that. And I do still plan to do the downsides of PC gaming and or the difficulties of PC gaming, that sort of thing, and a couple other similar topics like that, like most common misconceptions about PC gaming. But I just haven't gotten around to recording them yet, so I at least have one of the two drafted out and just need to record it. I do technically still need to do the review for that controller. I'm hoping that's probably going to be a higher priority one, just because of the fact that although I did do the Amazon review, which is what they wanted the most, I do want to do the video review because it is still a great controller, and I've been using it every time I play on PC. So, but then there's also the YouTube channel for the podcast, and that's YouTube at the Orange Box Podcast. On Rumble, it is not a custom URL, but you can find it there as well. The podcast goes live every Friday at 7 a.m. Central Time for the video version, barring any technical issues on both platforms. And then the audio-only version goes live at 12 a.m. Central Time every Friday on all major audio podcast platforms, including Apple Podcasts, YouTube Music, Spotify, Deezer, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, and others. Here, I guess one thing I do want to note is next 2 weeks are going to be a little bit, or not next 2 weeks, but next week is going to be a bit different in terms of our recording and publishing schedule. I think most likely I'll still have the episodes going up on Friday because of the fact that it's less of an issue, and I haven't fully decided. Most likely the episode will still go up on Friday. We're just recording earlier in the week because of Thanksgiving and everything. I want to get plenty of time with family, but probably get those recorded. We're going to record that either Sunday or Monday, depending on what ends up working out better. But otherwise, it should still go up the same day. With Christmas coming up, we'll also be recording earlier in the week, but it will probably be going up on Christmas Day, is the current plan. But we'll see if that plan holds as time comes. So we still got over a month until then. It's just thinking ahead about that. So just keep an eye out for that for those of you who are listening and all that good stuff. Then I also have my YouTube cooking channel, Not Authentic But Delicious. That's YouTube at NABD Cooking. And nothing new's been put up, and at this point it's pretty close to a year since the last time I put anything up. But there's still a bunch of great recipes, and I don't know when I will put anything up again. It's just been very busy time, and it's hard to find the time to do all of the stuff associated with that. So, it's also just not a priority right now. So we'll see what happens. Either way, it's still there. There's still good stuff. And I think that's everything. So, last chance. Any final thoughts?
No thoughts, but actually I did have one last thing I want to mention. You reminded me of something. So it's a bit tentative right now, but on December 12th, I am possibly going to be, that's what I'm planning right now, to have my annual live stream, Christmas live stream special. So, nice. As of right now, that's what I'm playing. So I'll be playing Batman Arkham Origins just to see if I can beat the game in a single night without dying once. To see if I can be the Batman. So that will be definitely a good time. And I'll definitely, of course, have some giveaways going on during live stream. So I'll have stuff like time set up later on. But just right now, as of right now, that's what I'm planning on doing that.
Sounds good. Yeah, we got the Game Awards coming up soon too. I don't know if I don't know if we'll try to do any sort of streaming for that, because it's probably gonna be a long event, and typically that's just a little too long. I think last year it was like 4 hours long, and even though I'll have the editing done, earlier in the week, so it wouldn't be a problem from that standpoint. I don't know if I really want to spend 4 hours going through that, because it's typically kind of slow. So I don't know. We'll see. Okay. Well, I am the Frozen Gamer 87. That is I am Zeracon. We are the Orange Box Podcast. And until next time, you too can be a console that is really a PC, but is still really a console, but is still a PC, but maybe is a console. Orange Box Podcast. Out.